Do you find you can't get enough spooky goodness? Then by Jove, you need to check out the Generally Spooky Patreon. For the princely sum of £4 a month, you can enjoy our main episodes a whole day earlier than the general public. If that doesn't float your boat, you can become an £8 a month spooky trooper. You'll get the main episodes early and access to 12 extra Patreon exclusive episodes, with more to come. The episode that really tickles my pickle is about Private Wojtek, a brown bear that served in World War II. As a top draw £12 a month Spookmaster General, you'll be on Cloud 9 with access to our Wee Blether series. In it, my darling wife and I debrief episodes, play games, and chitter-chatter about our goings-on. You'll also become a member of the Spooky Book Club, where Eilean is currently reading us Peter Pan, having just finished Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Simply marvellous. Did I mention you also get 10% off our quality merchandise if you join? You bet your bacon you do. So come join us. Get your peepers over to patreon.com/generallyspooky and support your favourite rapscallions. Tally-ho!
Do you love a good ghost story, tales of the paranormal, and sightings of the unexplained? If so, the Paranormal Exposed podcast is right up your alley. Join me every Wednesday as I guide you through a new spooky episode. Listen in as I give you the spooky stories and the facts to back them up, or poke a few holes in their stories. Whether you are a skeptic or a believer, this is a great way to explore and to expose the paranormal.
Hello again! Here we are, back for another spooky installment. I'm excited.
Welcome to the Generally Spooky podcast.
Yes. You always give me such a look. I wish you could see it at home. The look that only your spouse can give you.
Well, I'm excited for this week because we are talking about a place that I get asked about on the Instagram all the time.
Oh, yeah?
All the time.
That's exciting. I know nothing at all about today.
No, I even offered to give you a hint and you said no.
Nope.
You didn't want one.
I want to settle in with you folks at home.
If you're new here, if this is the first time you're joining us, welcome. If it's not, also welcome. But the way that this usually goes is I'll research a part of Scottish history, a Scottish ghost story, a cool Scottish historical place, and I will tell Kieran all about it.
Yep. I get to sit and listen and hear it for the first time, just like you at home.
And this is technically episode 3 of our 5th season.
Yes.
So if you enjoy what you hear, there's plenty more. And by the end of the season, we will have 50 whole episodes.
Oh, 50 stories told. As I said back in season 1, from our ears to your mouths.
Lovely.
Bring that back.
Lovely.
Doesn't get said often enough.
Good.
Well, I'm excited to hear what we're talking about today.
This week, we are talking about Eilean Donan Castle.
Ooh, the land of my forebears.
Exactly. It's one of the most photographed places in the country.
Oh, yeah?
Eilean Donan, yeah. Loads of people take the time to visit. It's really popular. I get asked about it a lot. People want to know whether or not they should go. They want to know about the place. This is for you, with all of my love, because this is everything that you could want to know, because it's just the good bits. I'm pretty sure there's a book out there on Scottish history, but it has a name like that.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's Scottish history, just the good bits.
I think I've seen that before.
I'll need to have a look, see if I can get it.
It's a good idea.
So this is Eilean Donan Castle, but just the good bits.
Well, that's exciting. I had no idea it was so popular.
Hugely popular.
Because it's, spoilers for later, but it's the MacRae Castle, as far as I'm aware. Maybe I'm totally wrong.
Well, it wasn't always the MacRae Castle.
Oh. Well, to me, it's the MacRae Castle. I'm a MacRae, for context there, if you didn't know.
You're not just super passionate.
Yep. So that's why I've always known about it. But I had no idea other people would care, so to speak.
I think it's more about the picturesqueness of the place. necessarily than the history.
Fair.
Because I feel like the history isn't that well known.
Yeah.
But to look at, Eilean Donan is beautiful.
Yes.
It's on the west coast of Scotland, in the Highlands, and on a little island where 3 different lochs all meet.
Oh.
I wasn't sure if you knew that.
I didn't know that, no. I can see it now because I've got a very clear picture of it in my head. Weirdly from pictures I've seen, because I've been to Eilean Donan Castle, but I was pretty young and I don't really remember it.
Well, so many photos are taken of it.
Yeah.
There are plenty out there.
Very.
Yeah, it's where 3 different lochs meet.
Very picturesque.
And we'll get into it a little bit later on, but there's a reason that this spot was chosen for a castle. It's pretty close to Kyle of Lacalsh, if you're familiar with Scotland at all. But just west coast, Highlands. Let's get into it.
Sounds good to me.
You with me?
I'm with ya,
You're
Captain.
with me.
I'm with ya, Captain.
So, Kieran did kind of spoiler my lead on this one, but Eilean Donan has been the seat of Clan MacRae for a long time.
See, that's the problem when I don't know what the story is beforehand. I can just, like, blunder in, mouth flapping. Like, oh, there's this fun story. I'm like, yes, there is.
Yep, that's the whole thing. But we're going to get there. It wasn't always the MacRae castle, but I thought that's why this one might intrigue you particularly, Kieran, for us to talk about this week.
Absolutely.
Like most of the castles we talk about here on the podcast, we've talked about several now. We're old hats at this.
Yeah.
This castle is very, very old.
I was just thinking, I wonder if I can, like, go through, like, what it will probably be. So it was a site of residence before it was a castle, probably for 800 years or so, before a building got made there in, like, the 1100s, perhaps. But before a further castle was built in the 1300s. But the castle as we know it today was probably built in, like, the 1700s.
That's a very, very good series of guesses. Not all of them are on the mark here, but you have understood the assignment of the castle episodes.
I'm a slow learner, but after the 5 or 6, however many castles we've done, I'm spotting the patterns.
I'm proud of you. This is a proud moment for me.
Thank you. You seem very proud.
As a pseudo-educator, I'm very proud of you.
I have definitely pseudo-learned something.
We talked about it ages ago. It's something we should really do, where we have a bingo card for all our episodes. Maybe we should have a castle-specific bingo card.
Yes, I think so.
If anyone is of a crafty persuasion and wants to make these, I would love to see them done.
That'd be very cool.
Anyway, Eilean Donan Castle is very, very old. To get to the very beginning of the story, we have to go all the way back to 580 AD.
Interesting.
Nearly 1500 years ago.
Damn. It always astounds me how long people have been living at these places.
Scotland is old.
Yeah.
In 580 AD, Saint Donan came to Scotland from Ireland to spread the message of Christianity to the Picts who were here in that area at that time.
With you.
Saint Donan was a very brave man because the Picts had quite the reputation for violence and bloodthirst, fierce warriors, all of that good stuff.
Yep.
The island Eilean Donan was named after this saint.
I didn't see that coming.
Along with several different places across Scotland, like Kildonan on Arran, which is where he was buried, apparently.
Oh. I've never connected those two.
Well, it's rare you see just Donan on its own in Scotland. There's always something before it, so there's Eilean Donan. There's quite a few places, if you look across a map, that have Donan somewhere in them.
Oh. Well, even hearing Saint Donan, it didn't make sense in my brain as a name. Oh, so he was Mr. Donan. I'm like, oh, what?
Right?
What? Okay.
Would you like to hear why so many places are named after Saint Donan?
No, I'm okay.
Just skip this chapter?
Yeah, I think we'll just...
Okay.
No, I want to know.
So he travelled to Scotland to bring the Picts the gift of Christianity. Like so many Christians have done for so many people over the years.
Yep, that's one way of putting it.
But unfortunately, not everyone was receptive to what St. Donan had to say.
Oh, that is shocking to me.
Bringing a new religion and completely change your belief system. Some people didn't like it.
Yeah.
And around 617 AD, he was executed.
Oh. Well, fair enough, really. It's what happens, isn't it? It's not the first time, nor the last time.
No, especially at this time period.
Yes.
He's considered a martyr in the Christian faith because he died doing God's work. And there's a couple of different versions of his death that exist. The first is that he was preaching on the Isle of Egg, which he's the patron saint of. And the island was attacked by marauding robbers. Donan managed to stay pretty cool under very stressful circumstances. And the only thing he asked them was for them to let him finish giving mass before they killed him.
Oh.
And they agreed. They were like, seems fair. Okay.
Last requests and all that?
Yeah, so they did. He finished giving mass and then they beheaded him.
Oh, that was lovely, that was. Right, off with his head. Let's carry on.
Along with 52 of his monks.
Ooh. That's a lot, isn't it?
It's a lot of heads.
That's a lot of heads. Don't you have to be some sort of bunny to be the patron saint of Egg?
Is that on the bingo card, or do I get points?
I don't know.
How do I win?
Kieran interrupts for non-relevant joke. Check.
Pun. Or
Pun.
is that a pun? I guess not.
It's not really a pun.
Well, I suppose it is on egg.
It's just a bit of Easter fun. Easter funny, if you will.
I don't think it's very Easter funny.
That was the pun.
The other version of St. Donan's death is that a, quote, pagan Pictish queen, unquote, burned him and 150 other people.
Well, if you're going to do it right, you know. It's a statement to be made. And both of those are a lot more like noble in the face of God than just like he got dysentery and then died, you know.
Yeah.
Which I feel would be equally as likely.
To be fair, the idea of marauding robbers arriving on the island to plunder is, what's the word, plausible, since that did happen.
Yep.
I don't know about the Pictish queen. Depending on when that legend started, it may be a way to both discredit pagans and women.
Yeah.
You know?
I do.
Especially because she potentially murdered 3 times as many people.
She was the most horrible.
She was in a position of power. Just food for thought.
Yep, I quite agree with that. It's the most badass, though.
Hell yeah.
Murdered by a Pictish queen. That's how I want to go.
I'll put it on your epitaph, don't worry. So he was killed. St. Donan was killed, and that's how Eilean Donan got its name. Long before the castle was ever built.
So is that where he was when he died?
No, but the island was named after him.
Oh, okay. I'm with you.
So that's how it got his name.
Yes.
And the castle doesn't exist yet, which you called already.
Yep.
I think it happened on the 17th of April, because that's his feast day. And I think that's a thing in Christianity, Catholicism, where the feast day is celebrated on the date that a saint died.
Oh, interesting.
And it's celebrated on the 17th of April. So,
stands to reason.
Calculated guess tells me that it may have happened then.
Yes.
But I'm happy to be wrong. I don't know enough to claim to be an expert on anything.
I should have waited for my joke, though, because that is quite near Easter.
There's proof on Eilean Donan itself, the island, that people were living there during the Iron Age.
Okay.
The archaeologists, historians, found something called vitrified stone, which I'm pretty sure we talked about in our Uckert Castle episode as well, because they found the same thing there. And there were also Picts there. So there's a lot of similarities between the two sites, historically.
That's interesting.
And vitrified stone is stone that's been blasted with lots of high heat.
Oh.
Which I think is incredible.
Yeah.
That it exists from this time, and they were able to do that. But they haven't found anything on the island that's linked to early Christianity. They have these stones that suggest people were living there.
Yep. I like it.
No religious connotation.
Or that there was a dragon.
A dragon?
Yeah.
Blasting the stones?
Yes.
With that heat?
That's my theory.
Good theory.
It's not the Iron Age. It was a dragon.
I mean, maybe if you were in Wales.
Maybe. I didn't think the island of Eilean Donan was big enough to have like a settlement on it. In my head, it's pretty much just got the castle on it. and
It's a
not much
pretty
else.
big castle.
I suppose it is, isn't it? But
It's a whole castle.
there's a good chance it looked different 1,500 years ago.
Yeah, the island may have been bigger.
Yeah. It's been just slowly chewed away by the three lochs.
It was a pretty long time before the first castle was built on Eilean Donan. Not until the 1200s. So you were very close.
I was pretty close.
We're jumping forward by about 600 years.
And I said 800.
You did. I said at the top, they were good guesses. They just weren't quite right. The reason that the first castle was built was to try and protect the people who were living there, like the area surrounding the mainland, from the Vikings.
Oh.
Remember
Well.
I said it was plausible that Egg was attacked by plundering robbers? This is kind of why.
Well.
It wasn't the same Vikings, but
No.
things like that have happened historically.
Stranger things have happened.
At sea.
At sea and on islands.
I was doing a lot of research into this, the Viking raids on Scotland, and it's made me wonder if we should do a mini-series just on the Vikings
Ooh, that'd be pretty cool.
and their impact on Scotland, because I was way in over my head for just this part of this story, but it's super interesting.
That is super interesting.
I can give you just the nutshell version.
I would appreciate that.
The Vikings were invading Scotland between 800 AD and 1266.
Okay.
So it was over a long period of time. And they were pretty good at what they did. They pillaged and usurped and invaded real good.
That is what I know of the Vikings.
Yeah. So over time, they actually amassed a great deal of power in the North and West Highlands
Okay.
because they invaded by boat. So they could get into the Northwest because there's lots of islands.
Oh.
So they came right over the top
Yep.
and invaded that way.
Just kind of scooted in. And nobody would be expecting them because, you thought it was just sea out from there. There was no thought of America way over the way.
Well, I mean, there's Ireland.
Depending how north you are on the northwest.
Ireland's right
I
there.
haven't forgotten about Ireland. He said in a very Irish accent.
You get that all the time with the word Ireland.
Yeah.
All the time.
I don't know why. It comes out. I'm not just taking the piss for any Irish
No,
listeners out there.
you don't. It's not on purpose. You do it all the time.
I sometimes hear it when I'm editing. I'm like, why did I say it like that? Do I always say anyway?
There's something about the way you speak where that feels natural to you.
Yeah.
Which is funny.
I'm not going to try again because it'll be too forced.
No, you'll overthink it now. Anyway, the Vikings had a lot of power in the North and the West Highlands, as well as the northern islands, which we've talked about, Orkney, Shetland.
Yes. I've got so many questions. I'll save them for the blether.
Are there any pressing ones that I need to clarify? Or
Well, did they settle the Vikings
Well-
if they had power, or did they have power because they came in and when they arrived, everyone went, "Oh shit, let them do as they will"?
It's somewhat disputed because the Lord of the Isles title has connections to Vikings.
Oh, interesting.
And if you go all the way back, I think Vikings had that title or similar. So it's a bit iffy.
Yeah. Okay.
And I don't know enough about it to say for sure.
Well, we can chat over at the blether on Patreon.
But the reason I bring up the Lord of the Isles, if they weren't Vikings themselves, they had strong connections to Vikings and the Scandinavians, because the Lord of the Isles were pretty much always at odds with the Scottish or British kings.
Yes.
They were a kingdom unto themselves, so they had different loyalties and connections.
And after a hard day sat rowing, you'd be Lord of the Piles.
That's disgusting. Now, it was either King Alexander II or III who wanted to try and hold back the Kingdom of the Isles, ruled by the Lord of the Isles and with links to Scandinavia, by building a castle on Eilean Donan.
Yeah, okay, from where that is, I can see that being quite a good strategic move. Difficult to get all your stone onto an island, but...
Yes, but possible. And as always, like you said, the castle looked differently than it does today. It's changed a lot over time. I mentioned it earlier, but the castle was in a really good defensive position. Because it was the meeting point of these different lochs. So if invaders came from the sea, the castle would be a good place to sort of fend them off and stop them getting any further inland.
Makes sense.
But I also read that it could have been the Earl of Ross who had the castle built.
Oh, okay.
It might not have been King Alexander. But I don't know which is true.
Who knows? I tend to believe not the king, because I can always see the benefit of the king being like, oh yeah, I did that. It was a really good idea, so that was my idea.
That, but the Lord of the Isles, the Kingdom of the Isles, was infringing on the king's power. And they didn't listen to him. So there's a good chance he might have wanted them brought to heel.
Yep, that would make sense.
But also, both could be true, because the king could have ordered the Earl of Ross to do it.
Yep, that's true.
The Lord of the Isles and the Earl of Ross historically were never friends. They weren't allies, mainly because they were neighbours.
Yeah.
So they're always bristling up against each other, and tensions were always quite high as they were vying for more power.
Yep.
So again, it would make sense if he had built the castle.
It's a lot easier back then to hate someone you can see than someone you can't see, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a pretty cool legend surrounding the founding of the castle.
Oh, yeah?
But I'm going to get into that later.
Oh.
Because it's more folklore and myth than purely history. So I'm going to save it for later on.
Yeah. She's got you hooked, hasn't she?
So a little teaser.
You have to listen to the whole episode now, don't we?
I've got you on the hook. I have you on the hook. Later, in the 13th century, the Mackenzies held Eilean Donan Castle.
Have the Mackenzies held all the castles?
Oh, I don't think we've talked about Mackenzies holding castles much.
No, I feel the Mackenzies come up a lot, and they're just generally hassling everybody.
They came up in our Dunrobin episode, which I will again allude to later.
Well, that was like the castle episode, so maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't feel like they come up all the time. But I think this is funny because there are loads of Mackenzies where Kieran and I grew up.
Well, that was just went into my head, yeah.
The Earl of Ross had been the Mackenzies' overlord. It's not really the right word, but I don't really know how to describe it.
Yeah.
But he was superior to them. So I think that's how they got Eilean Donan Castle. But at one point, the Mackenzies were the vassals of the MacDonalds, who were from the islands.
Okay.
So they've kind of been on both sides of this feud.
Interesting.
It's confusing, but I will do my best to make it fun. Kenneth Mackenzie, I'm assuming an authority in Clan Mackenzie, or at least the Mackenzies of Kintail, so like a particular section of the clan, held Eilean Donan as a vassal of the Earl of Ross.
Okay. Yep.
Makes sense?
That makes sense.
But when the Earl of Ross demanded the castle back, Kenneth wouldn't give it to him.
How about get fucked, mate?
He just said no. We're keeping it. This is ours now.
Yes, and the thing is, we're already in it, so we're just not going to leave.
We actually really enjoy being in charge of this really well-defended position.
Yeah.
And having our own power and land. So we're going to keep doing that.
And by doing that, we're now super well defended.
Yeah.
So you can try and stop us, but you've backed yourself into a corner, mate.
But you know, the Earl was an Earl. That's a big title. It's
Yep.
one under royalty, basically. So bold.
Well, it's a strong position to pick a fight from, but it's still a tough fight to pick.
Yeah, I'm not really sure how he saw it panning out.
Dunno.
If the risk was just worth it.
I always wonder that these things, but did you think you'd win?
Yeah.
Did you?
You must do. Otherwise you
Presumably.
wouldn't do it.
Well, yeah.
Naturally, the Earl of Ross was pissed.
Yep.
So he attacked Eilean Donan Castle. But the Mackenzies won.
Oh, shit. That sucks, doesn't it?
They were able to hold off Ross's men, and they kept Eilean Donan.
Oh, man.
So now it's Mackenzie land.
Well, fair play.
But you didn't see that coming.
I did not see that coming.
Because I didn't.
Oh, I bet the Earl is pissed. I had this castle built to be like impregnable. Oh shit, I'm on the outside of it. I balls that one up.
Right?
Yeah.
The next part of the Mackenzie history, Eilean Donan, kind of made me laugh. Because I read in multiple places that the histories of Clan Mackenzie, written by Mackenzies, claim that in the early 1300s, Robert the Bruce stayed at the castle.
Oh, yeah.
During the First War of Independence, and he was sheltering from the winter. So he was a guest there. but there doesn't seem to be a lot of evidence for this visit
Really?
at all. Other than the Mackenzie clan history saying that it happened.
Well,
And it's just really funny to me, imagining all this havering happening with history, and it's just funny to me.
that happened in the Dunrobin one as well, I think. It was one of the sons wrote the history.
Yes, yeah.
And it was just very much a favourable history. Well, that's hilarious. Oh,
I thought it was really funny.
So can you prove me wrong? I'm like, oh, I guess not, so...
He stayed with us, and it was the best place he ever stayed, and
Aye, Bobby said for me to call him Bobby.
we're the reason he won the war. Havering.
Yeah. But people just listening. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So why would you think otherwise?
Now, 1331 was a particularly bloody year
Ooh.
for Eilean Donan Castle,
Okay.
as a heads up. In 1331, Thomas Randolph, who was the Earl of Murray, sent word that he was going to be visiting Eilean Donan.
Uh-huh.
It was a part visit, but part inspection. Just to check that things are good. I don't really know.
Well, I imagine it's that way in the nobility, that you don't just go and see people.
Well, I think it was on behalf of the king at the time, because he's another earl. He had a position of power. So I think he's on behalf of the king.
Yeah.
Now, we've talked about Thomas before.
The name seemed familiar.
Yes. He was an important guy. He was Robert the Bruce's nephew.
Oh.
And it was his uncle, Robert the Bruce, who made him the very first Earl of Murray.
Yes.
You look suspicious.
It's very familiar.
He fought in the Wars of Independence. He was the regent of Scotland for a while, so he ruled the country.
Uh-huh.
He was an accomplished soldier. He was a well-respected leader. He was the whole package. Everyone knew Thomas Randolph. But there's one detail about him in particular that's going to interest you when it comes to Thomas Randolph.
Interesting. I'm going to be very offended if it's just like he has a massive dick or something.
No, I know my audience. This
Okay.
This is going to make you happy. Thomas was Agnes Randolph's father.
Oh my god.
The Agnes Randolph.
The Agnes Randolph.
Who defended Dunbar Castle against attack pretty much single-handedly.
Oh. Well, there you go.
So this is her father.
Damn. That's one of my favourite stories in the podcast still.
That is in season 3. I think the end of season 3. If you haven't listened, highly recommend.
Yep.
Fantastic story.
Excellent story.
But if you've listened already, this is her dad.
That's interesting. I actually thought it was a nephew of Robert the Bruce who started the Dunrobin line. I thought that episode started with a Robert the Bruce nephew. Or it might have been like a Robert the Bruce's first man's nephew.
Yeah, it's tricky. I forget. It's the Sutherlands who are at Dunrobin.
Yeah.
I would need to check back in my notes for exactly where that happens. Because at one point there was a Sutherland nephew to a king.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking of.
But he died before he inherited.
Regardless, Agnes Randolph, way more fun.
Amazing story.
Yeah.
Highly recommend you listen. This is her dad. Her
Very
dad is
cool.
going to Eilean Donan Castle.
Oh, yes. I forgot.
That's why we're here.
Who am I again?
So this is an important guy, right?
Yeah.
We know he's important. The Mackenzies have to impress him. Mm-hmm. They have to show him that they know how to do things.
Oh, I was thinking big feast, but then you said this is a really bloody year. So, big massacre?
Well, what would you do to impress Thomas Randolph?
Well, I think I would go big feast. Have a ceilidh, have a party in his
Big
honour.
spread.
Yeah. Just show him a good time.
With all the, finest foods.
Just have a good time. Get the whiskey out. Roast a, goose. Whatever you had back then to roast.
One goose. Oh my god.
Living like paupers over here.
Guys, this party's lame.
They only had one cheese board. Can you believe that?
Can you believe that? Just cheddar.
Better than smooshed together baby bells.
No culture here at all. The Mackenzies did not just throw a big feast. To try and impress Thomas, the lords of the castle gathered, arrested. Mm-hmm. Why have I written that so stupid? The lords of the castle gathered and arrested 50 criminals. Mm. So they weren't in custody. They rounded them up and then arrested them and executed them all.
Oh.
All 50 of them.
Well, that's how you show a guy a good time.
And then their heads were put on the castle walls.
Oh, that's... no. No.
You mean that's not how you entertain?
That's... When they say, are you not entertained? I am not entertained.
We have a spiky fence. Is that not what that's for?
I mean, because, rounded up 50 criminals. Did they round up just 50 of the nearest people who are looking idle?
Well, they weren't already arrested. That's like they weren't in the dungeons awaiting execution.
Exactly. So they say, it's officially illegal to have a face like that, so you're arrested.
Oh, God, look at you. Get rid.
Picking your nose, you're arrested. What's the sentencing? Death.
Like everything else.
Yep.
Yeah, that's how they decided to impress Thomas Randolph.
Did it work?
Well, nothing... I didn't read anything that said he didn't like it or was upset. So I'm assuming he just kind of arrived and went, oh, nice.
Sick. Taking care of them crims.
There's no records of him being particularly upset about any of it.
Well...
If you're not vocally against it, it's not really enough.
No. But then if you arrived and you said, I've got these 50 criminals, you'd have to assume they're criminals. Maybe they are criminals. Maybe I'm being not giving the benefit of the doubt. But...
Seems a bit extreme.
Seems a bit odd. Well, I choose going by death from Pictish Queen.
Right.
Yeah.
Better way to go.
Rather than beheaded as a group just to impress some nonce.
Yeah. Throughout the 14th century, so through the 1300s, the Mackenzies carried on feuding with the Earls of Ross.
Yep.
They weren't getting on with each other. I'm assuming because they nicked their castle.
Well, it's not a great relationship.
No. The next story is kind of confusing. It was difficult to tell who owned and controlled the land. It seems a bit iffy. But I'll do my best. The Mackenzies still held Eilean Donan. But in 1342, William III, Earl of Ross, gave the chief of Clan MacRae a lot of land around Kintail.
Okay.
Which is nearby.
Yep.
So he hasn't given this chief, Eilean Donan, but he's given him a lot of land really near the Mackenzie land. So it's kind of encroaching into their power.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what authority he had to give away Kintail, because the Mackenzies of Kintail held Eilean Donan.
Well, it's tricky.
Do you see why this is confusing?
Yes.
Because I don't really know if he could do that, because I don't know if the land was his.
No.
Or if the Mackenzies had just decided this was theirs, when really it was his.
It's very strange. And it's always very, I'm going to give you this land, but now it's your problem to, keep it, because it's not technically yours, but I've given it to you, so it's yours.
Right. I've even looked into it a lot, and it's just confusing.
Yeah.
But that's roughly the situation. We can move on.
Yep.
Ragnall MacRae received the land from William, and this added to his already considerable power across the Hebrides. Mm-hmm. So he had a lot of power across the islands. And taking this land from William meant that he was now William's vassal.
Okay, yep.
So he's been given this land, but now he answers to William.
Yeah, so what's a vassal? That's come up quite a lot.
A vassal, kind of like a... I say servant, but not in a waiting kind of way. Mm-hmm. If you're someone's vassal, then they are your lord. Mm. And you answer to them. If they want you to go to war, you go.
Oh, yeah.
If they have orders for you, you take them.
Yeah.
You serve them.
Okay, so it's not like an allegiance, because that implies kind of equals. It's a hierarchy.
You're below. If you're a vassal, you're below them.
Got you.
But he's been granted power by William. Mm-hmm. but William is still above him.
Yes.
And he answers to him.
I'm with you.
Is that clear?
Yep.
I maybe should have said that earlier. I apologise if that was confusing.
No, I roughly got it. Was it? Well, if it's coming up again, let's just clarify. So I'm not over here looking like a boob.
You're right. The Earl, William, didn't seem like a good guy from everything I've read that he did. I know you're not surprised by that.
Yeah.
But he didn't seem like a good guy. In 1346, he abducted Kenneth Mackenzie, 3rd of Kintail. I'm assuming the grandson of the first one I told you about.
Oh, yeah, yep.
He abducted him and had him executed in Inverness.
Historically, and I'm talking in the podcast, that has not gone well. Because that's not the first time that's happened.
No. What could possibly go wrong?
I'm going to say people are going to be pissed. Unless he was an arsehole, then they might be glad.
So you've actually done us a solid.
Oh, thank God. He was the heir and he was such a moron.
Unfortunately, despite him being murdered, there wasn't really much the Mackenzies could do, because William was the cousin of King David II.
Well,
you can't go complaining to the king if you're complaining about one of his favoured relatives.
Definitely not. That's a bastard. That is.
Right. Now, Kenneth Mackenzie had a son before he was executed, so the line continued after his death, which is important later. But it was also in 1346 that King David summoned his lords and all of their men to a meeting in Perth, because it was around this time that he was psyching up to invade England. He was like getting ready.
So he's having a pep rally.
Kinda, yeah. Probably less pom-poms, but more alcohol.
More alcohol. Skirts were a bit longer.
Yes.
More tartan.
They're getting ready to invade England.
Yes.
This is a big moment. This was a huge gathering of people. The whole Scottish army had basically massed in Perth right before they were going to march into England.
Got you.
But this was when William, the Earl of Ross, basically shat the bed.
Oh no.
Because William and Rory, who he had given Mackenzie land to, finally had it out in this big argument. They exploded at each other. They hadn't gotten on with each other. And it was all resolved with William killing Rory.
Oh shit.
He killed one of his own men.
Damn.
At this gathering of all the Scottish nobility preparing to go to war.
Oh, that's not a good show of support.
And then, instead of owning up to it and being honest from the beginning that he had killed him, William bailed.
Oh no.
He fled Perth and came back up north. Instead of marching with the army.
Oh. Well, he's fast-tracked his way to being executed, I would have thought.
Not great.
It's not great. I can't see his cousin being pleased at that.
Well, it wouldn't have been the worst thing in the world. But his actions, his fleeing, had a huge impact on David's invasion of England. Because when William left, I'm assuming all his men went with him. And then some of the other northern lords saw that William had bailed, and they took that to mean that he didn't believe in the invasion.
Oh.
So then they left with all their men.
Oh no.
So David's army was much smaller than he had intended it to be. And he invaded anyway.
Oh.
And then King David was captured at the Battle of Neville's Cross and had to spend 11 years in England.
Well, that's a stay of execution for William, you know, if the king's not there. But that's also a lot of just smouldering resentment for 11 years.
And a reputation ruined.
Yeah. Well.
I feel like this is the king where the Sutherlands may have become king after him. I think,
yeah.
You know, we mentioned it earlier.
Yes.
I think that's King David.
Got you.
I think that's where we are. Now, you'd think that he would stop there, William, because he fucked it all up.
Yep.
But he didn't. He still had a lot of power and favour with David while he was down in England. So William was made the Justiciar of Scotland north of the Forth.
That's surprising.
Which meant he was carrying out a lot of David's wishes.
Oh.
That he was ruling in his stead in the north.
I didn't see that coming. That seems like a much more deserved post. Or
I think it's, you're my family. You're the only one I can really trust. You need to do this for me.
Well, there is that. This is the one time you're allowed to keep it in the family.
Let's not go there again if we don't have to. Unfortunately for David, William enacted a rule that meant all the proceeds of the court, and I'm assuming this is the court he's in charge of as justiciar, so I think like fines, payments, all went to him personally.
Well, I mean...
instead of to the crown.
I can see why he did that.
He says, I'm in charge, so I say I get all the money, and I say that that's fine, and I say no one can check.
Ah. So he's a bit of a hero of the Tories then.
This is actually where they got it from.
Yeah.
It's called austerity. Even with all of this bad behaviour and him trying to turn everything to his advantage, William still couldn't gain control of Eilean Donan, even though he continued to try.
Come on, man. That's just getting embarrassing at this point.
You know, he has this whole reputation. He's trying to encroach upon Mackenzie land. He still can't do it.
Oh, dude.
I read that by this point, Eilean Donan was held by the Macaulays on behalf of the Mackenzies.
They're not even in it themselves?
Well, no, the Macaulays are under the Mackenzies, so they've pledged fealty to them.
Yep.
So they're holding it on their behalf.
Well, fair play. Fair play.
With me?
Yep.
I'm pretty sure Kenneth Mackenzie's son, Murdoch, married into the Macaulay family. So there's still a connection.
Yeah.
But they're in I say inferior, but that seems a bit mean. But I think that's the link. The Macaulays came from Lewis, as far as I know. And my granny was a Macaulay.
Was she indeed?
From Lewis.
Ooh. Held any castles recently?
She would. If anyone was going to, it would have been her. Jesus Christ. She was a rocket. Later, William got his comeuppance.
Yep.
Which I'm sure you were hoping for. He tried to leave the earldom of Ross to his half-brother upon his death.
Yep.
But he was told that he wasn't allowed to do that. He had to leave everything to his daughter, since his eldest son didn't keep well and he died young. And the reason that he wasn't allowed to leave it to his half-brother was because the king had plans for who William's daughter was going to marry.
Ah. I was like, that's unusual. It has to go to the daughter. But that makes more sense. It just has to go to this guy that the king wants. Yeah.
David, the king, wanted William's daughter to marry a man called Walter Leslie to reward him for exemplary military service and for participating in the Crusades.
Oh.
The king wanted to give Leslie an earldom, but he couldn't just create one.
Yep.
Because it would encroach on other people's lands. So he ordered William to have his daughter marry Leslie, so then Leslie would become an earl.
Ah.
Is this all sounding familiar yet?
Yes.
It should be.
No. If I'm honest, no.
William's daughter was called Euphemia.
Oh, shit. Now it's familiar.
And she did end up marrying Walter Leslie. And when he died, she married Alexander Stewart, who became the Wolf of Badenoch.
Ah, there it is. All comes around again.
And eventually she gained the earldom of Ross in her own right. She took it to court because Alexander Stewart was awful to her.
Yep.
And she had the title herself, not her husband.
That's pretty cool, isn't it? Damn, this is a very interconnected episode.
Mm-hmm. The Highlands are very small.
Well, that as well.
But yeah, William was her father.
Oh, well, there you go. It's not great, because I quite liked her, but he's such an arsehole. Is now marred my view of her. Well, she can be great, even if her dad's an arsehole.
So it's all very hectic and chaotic around Eilean Donan.
Yeah.
Lots of changing hands and lots of squabbling and fighting for control.
And it's got to get to the MacRaes from here somehow.
Yes. Around 1362 was when the MacRaes arrived in Kintail.
Okay.
That was my very next sentence.
Set you up nicely.
You're getting to know the structure, I swear. The MacRaes began moving from around Bewley, which is outside Inverness, to the west coast.
Uh-huh.
And they settled on Mackenzie lands in and around Kintail. And through their service to the Mackenzies, the MacRaes gained their trust.
Oh, this sounds familiar, actually.
This next bit, I think, will. They gained their trust so much that the MacRaes became known as the Mackenzies' bodyguards.
Ah, yes.
This might be the bit that you've heard before,
Yep.
because the MacRaes were given the nickname the Mackenzies' shirt of mail. Which is a pretty cool nickname, I think.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty badass. I think I'm a shirt of just like tissue paper, though. But
You're like a big snuggly jumper.
yeah.
I'm not gonna protect you from much, but I'm cozy. So this is where the MacRaes enter the story
Yes.
as the Mackenzies' shirt of mail.
Heroically entered the story, if I do say so myself.
In the 1400s, the Mackenzies had Eilean Donan once more, so it wasn't the Macaulays anymore. Alexander Mackenzie, the 6th of Kintail, was the man in charge.
Uh-huh.
He initially had the favour of the crown because he had been fighting back against the Lord of the Isles.
Okay. Yep.
And because the Lord of the Isles was pretty much always against the crown, it meant that he had the crown's favour. Because your enemy's enemy is your friend.
That is the saying.
That's how all of this seems to work.
Yep.
In 1427, King James I decided that he was going to be sneaky.
Oh.
A sneaky bee.
Sneaky.
He had been pretty bothered by the Highland chiefs during his reign because he found that he really wasn't able to control them in the same way that he did the lowland lords. We've talked before quite a bit about that the difference in distance made the Highlands very difficult to govern.
Yes. That's what always surprises me about, like, the island Eilean Donan being habited for so long. Like, it's not very forgiving terrain to get to without a road.
You're very exposed there too.
Yeah. It's not an easy place to live.
So you notice it in some of the western scenery in the Highlands. There's not a lot of trees. It's because there's so much wind.
Yeah.
It's very exposed. So King James decided he was going to do something about it. Sources disagree on the truth and the accuracy, obviously, because this is history and nothing is simple. But King James travelled north to Inverness under the pretense of meeting with all of the Highland chiefs and to try and improve relations with everybody, to try and make ruling easier.
Yep.
Don't believe a word of that because it was all a trap. Alexander the 6th of Kintail was the great-grandson of Kenneth, who had been executed.
Oh.
To give you some scale.
Yep.
Just so you know where we are. And when the king came to Inverness in 1427, Alexander was only a young man. I don't have an exact age, but like early teens maybe.
Yeah.
Very young. But he did as he had been told. He answered the king's summons, went to Inverness to meet with him and discuss how they could improve relations. What happened next, Kieran? What did King James do?
Murdered him.
No.
Oh.
King James arrested everybody.
Oh.
Everybody who was in attendance of that meeting was arrested.
Were they arrested on the basis that they turned up for the meeting?
No, just that the meeting was a ploy.
Oh,
there
I
was
see.
no meeting. He just wanted them all in one place so he could arrest them all for not obeying him.
Well, okay.
So in one fell swoop, he confirmed everything that these chiefs thought about him as a king.
Yes. Well, ruling with the iron fist can kind of go either way. It's not a nice way to rule.
See, I don't even think that's an iron fist. It's sneaky and it's like doing things in bad faith.
Well, that's true.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not... It's not announcing battle.
No.
Luring them there under the pretense of peace and then doing that.
It's not great.
It's not what a good leader does.
No.
Some of the chiefs were executed, so you were partly right. Others were jailed. But what happened to Alexander?
He escaped.
Interesting.
That's my thought.
He was sent to school.
Oh. You get back to school, young man.
This is why I'm fairly sure that he was young.
Well, yeah. I really thought this was before school.
I mean, it didn't look like school today.
No.
It was a different kind of schooling, because you would learn different languages and politics and things like that, religion.
Yeah.
But you would learn how to read and write.
Yeah.
If you were wealthy.
Well,
and a man.
If you could get to go in the first place. Jump through all those hurdles first.
Like, noble children went to school. Or like private tuition. Yeah, this is how I'm fairly certain that he was young. Because his age was a big part of the reason that he was spared death and was spared jail. Because he was a child.
Yes.
But he was sent to school in Perth.
Well, there you go.
Which it seems surprisingly rational and reasonable until you think about it more and realise that James has taken away the Mackenzie chief against his will.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was thinking.
It's not good. He's just not dead.
Yeah, it's still controlling him.
Yes. And he's getting more of a lowland education. Perth is by no means in the lowlands, but it's not Eilean Donan.
Yeah.
With Alexander gone, the story goes that his uncles started creeping in to try and steal power in Kintail while he wasn't there.
Well, that's kind of fair, isn't it? You saw that coming.
Mm-hmm. And with Alexander gone, the MacAuleys were holding Eilean Donan again.
Oh, yeah.
From what I saw. And they were holding it against his uncles for him.
Loyalty.
I'm not sure if he had been living there before, but they were making sure that his uncles didn't take this castle.
Trying to sneak in.
Mm-hmm. They were the constables of the castle at this time.
Ooh.
Which is a term that will come up again. With all of this trouble that was now happening in the Mackenzie clan itself, something had to be done.
Yep.
Because all this infighting was making them vulnerable and causing a lot of problems. The hero of this story is a somewhat mythical figure, Finla Dhu. Now, he's apparently a MacRae ancestor.
Oh.
From what I saw. Yeah, he's apparently one of the big MacRae ancestors.
You've got my interest. Mm-hmm. You know I love it when it's about me.
Absolutely, babe. I'm here for you. Now, I think it's Finla. I think that's how you'd say it. Fionnla.
Say it again.
Fionnla.
Yeah, I think so.
That's how I would say it, Finla.
Mm-hmm. Finla.
If I'm wrong, just tell me I'm wrong. It's fine.
Maybe Finley. But I don't know.
Well, it might be the Gaelic. I don't know. Finla was sent down to Perth by the MacAuleys who were holding the castle to get Alexander out of there and take him home.
I just got him, a picture of him sitting in a school, but a Victorian school.
Oh, yeah.
Doing his homework, writing out his lines of Latin. I'm here to bust you out.
With those shorts and the long stockings.
Right, exactly.
And the little boots.
Yeah.
Maybe a hat. A straw boater, maybe.
Just sitting in detention after school, just oh, I hate this.
Catching frogs in the pond.
Yeah. You get it.
Oh, I'm with you, babe. Absolutely. I don't think that's where he was.
No.
So Finla's been sent down to Perth. And he actually managed it.
Oh, shit.
There's not a lot of details, but he managed to make his way all the way down to Perth without being caught at a time where so many of the Highland chiefs and lords had been taken. Things were sketchy.
Yep.
He managed to find Alexander in Perth and took him home again with no one being any the wiser of where he was, what had happened, nothing.
Damn. I wonder if they just didn't see it coming. Well, I couldn't conceive that someone would try and break him out of school. Maybe.
It seems like even if that was the case, Finla Dhu did a really good job. He managed to get him out of there with no upset, no nothing.
Damn. You gotta do what you gotta do.
That is hysterical.
Thank you.
After this, it seemed that Alexander had a pretty healthy, happy tenure as chief of the Mackenzies.
Good.
He came home and he continued fighting against the MacDonalds, which had been happening before.
Yep.
Which gained him favour with the king who had abducted him.
Took me a minute for my brain to catch up.
I know.
Just getting these reports in of this guy. Man, he's doing a lot of good work against McDonald's. Who is he again? I'm like, you don't remember him? No, I don't remember him at all. Well, I'm not going to be able to tell you.
Remember, that's the child you stole.
The child you snatched.
I know, it's so stupid, but it all comes round, because now he's returned to where he was supposed to be, but now he's serving the king's purpose, so he's not mad anymore. That's
just it. It's just he's gaining. That's what's most important to him.
Yeah.
So he can put his big child net back in the cupboard.
I'm imagining the child catcher from Che Che Bang Bang.
That's what I was going for.
The big nose.
Yep.
I mentioned the Battle of Blar Park in our extra episode about Brodie Castle.
Yes.
Which is up on Patreon, if you're interested. Alexander's son, Kenneth, fought in that battle.
He fought at the Battle of Blar and Blar.
Yes, he did. It was a particularly brutal battle. If you haven't listened to the extra episode, the MacDonalds clashed with the Mackenzies, and the MacDonalds were beaten. They were defeated. It was fought near Strathpeffer, which is reasonably close to Inverness.
Yep.
And many of the MacDonalds were drowned in the River Conan during this battle.
Very savage.
Very, very savage. You have to assume they wanted to go down fighting, because that's not how you would envision the end of a battle going.
No, certainly not.
So Alexander's son fought in that battle.
Successfully? Which side was he on?
Well, he was with the Mackenzies fighting against the MacDonalds.
Oh, yes, sorry. I got lost in history.
It happens. In the 1500s, the castle was added to, and the hornwork was added.
Ooh.
Which is the long portion at the front, which, if you've seen the castle, you will recognise immediately. It helped with defence, because it dictated how attackers had to approach the castle.
Okay.
So it's just a long stone part at the front of the castle.
Yeah, not quite as dramatic as Casa Doom in Lord of the Rings, but, that vibe.
No, not quite. But, it funneled attackers into where people wanted them.
Yeah.
And it also created a place for the people who were in the castle to use their new cannons.
Ooh.
They were set up good.
So now for the position, they're locked in and horny.
You alright? Uh-huh. Kenneth, the one who fought the MacDonalds, I was just telling you about, he died in 1492.
You didn't even get to see the cannons?
Doesn't seem like it, no.
No.
And then his eldest son, an heir, died in 1497.
Oh.
Which is not good.
No.
It meant that his second son, John of Kieran, inherited the title of Kintail, but he was very young. And that's never a good thing.
No, that's always a turbulent time in a clan.
Yes. Or to any position of power, anything to do with inheritance.
Yes. Once someone too young falls in, normally somebody wheedles in beside them to control them.
So once again, history repeats itself, and Killen's uncle tried to take over his nephew's rightful position.
Oh, surprise.
Even though he had been his tutor for years.
Yeah.
It seems that they were very close. But he tried to take it from him because he was young.
Ugh.
And his uncle had some support because Killen was seen as illegitimate by lots of people.
Oh.
Kenneth, his father, wasn't traditionally married to his mother. So it raised questions as to whether he could actually inherit.
Interesting.
I think they had like a common law marriage.
Oh.
Not a religious marriage.
Well, I bet they only cared about that once it came to like, oh no, this is bullshit now. I mean, it was all, congratulations, here's a gift on the day, but bastards.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. The usurper was Hector Roy Mackenzie.
Oh.
Who had land around Gairloch.
Oh.
So he had land of his own.
Yeah.
And again, this is funny to me because Hector Roy Mackenzie is a name that probably belongs to someone who lives around Gairloch now.
Yeah.
Now, I came across a pretty gnarly story related to Hector from the 1490s, which I think we have time for.
I think so.
I have it as a sort of reserved section, but I think we have time. Because it's not strictly about Eilean Donan, but it is about Hector.
I mean, I think the people are here for the long story. If you wanted the short story, you go to a different podcast.
You go to Wikipedia.
Yeah. You watch a little YouTube video. We want the depth.
Okay. Like I said, Hector had lots of land around Gairloch, But so did Alan MacRory, who was the chief of Clan MacLeod at the time. Hector struggled to actually claim and own his own land, even though he'd been granted them by the king, because Alan stopped him and made things difficult at every turn.
Interesting.
Because he didn't want Hector to have any power.
Yep.
And this was made even worse by the fact that Alan was married to Hector's sister.
Oh, that's tricky.
So they were brothers-in-law.
Yeah.
And he had had 3 sons with her.
Ooh.
So they were related.
Yep.
But he's still trying to stop Hector from claiming what's his by the king's right.
Yes. Cheeky.
Now, Alan had remarried, I'm assuming after his first wife died. So, Hector's sister. And he married a daughter of Roderick MacLeod of Lewis.
Uh-huh.
So he has lots of power. It was a powerful marriage that he had made. Brothers of Roderick MacLeod, so his new bride's uncles,
Yep.
decided that they didn't want a future MacLeod chief to have any relation to the Mackenzies.
Oh.
It's said in a lot of the sources that they didn't want any Mackenzie blood in a chief of MacLeod, which at the moment a future MacLeod chief would, because Alan's elder sons all had a Mackenzie mother.
Oh, no. I don't like where this is going.
The MacLeod brothers killed Alan and his children.
Oh. That's crazy. Mm-hmm. Oh, my God.
They killed them all. They killed their own family.
Oh. Presumably the mother as well.
No, they didn't kill their niece.
Oh, yeah, I was coming out of the wrong way around. Yeah. Ooshed.
But they killed Alan and his sons.
Fuck.
Who had a Mackenzie mother.
Well, that's a bit brutal.
So all of this happened and it ignited a fury in Hector.
Yeah.
Because those were his nephews. And although he'd had disputes with Alan, his ex-brother-in-law, he didn't want him murdered.
Well, that's quite another thing, isn't it?
And there's a problem because it was on the basis that they were connected to the Mackenzies.
Yeah.
So it's a slight.
It's not good. That's how you piss people off.
Mm-hmm. Apparently, Hector took the blood-stained shirts of his nephews along with him as evidence to report the murder to the king at Edinburgh.
Okay. That's a good way to do it. Very just.
Brutal.
But very brutal, but that's probably smarter than just going in there guns blazing.
Mm-hmm. And thankfully, in a rare turn of events for these episodes, the king listened.
Oh.
And took action in Hector's favour. I think it was James IV.
Never happens.
That he went down to speak to. The king granted Hector, quote, a commission of fire and sword, unquote.
Sounds badass.
Which is a real thing, and
yeah?
I'm dying to tell you about it.
I'm dying to hear about it.
This is why I wanted to tell you about Hector, even though he's loosely related.
Uh-huh.
Because I found out that this is a thing, and I was just like, oh my god. Now, it's very much what it sounds like, which is insane. But here's what this commission would allow you to do.
Mm-hmm.
Quote, to search, seek, take and apprehend the aforesaid persons, rebels and fugitives above named, wherever they can be apprehended. And if they can be captured, to put to them the knowledge of any assize for the crimes aforesaid, and to administer justice upon them, and execute them to death. And if need be, to raise fire and sword, and to burn their houses, and slay them, in case they make opposition or resistance in the taking and apprehending.
Oh shit. That is quite something. So you're just given permission to take the law into your own hands.
You were given full permission to wreck shit.
Big time.
It doesn't sound real.
No.
But it was. It was a Scottish thing, especially in the Highlands.
Why does that not surprise me?
Right? A commission of fire and sword. And you wouldn't even have to report to anyone what you had done once you'd done it. You could just deliver justice as you saw fit under this commission.
Oh. And to, like, obliterate them as well. If you, like, burn down their house and lands. Oh, fuck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you didn't even have to tell anyone what you had done.
No. Sweet, I'm off.
You didn't have to report afterwards.
Oh, crazy. Well, does he do it? Does he manage?
Hector murdered the men who killed his nephews. he took full advantage of the commission, and because he didn't have to report it, not much is said about what he did. But he murdered them.
Oh. Well, it just says execute them to death. It doesn't say do it swiftly, you know. God.
Mm-hmm. You deliver justice as you see fit.
Very Game of Thrones.
Mm-hmm. But it's a real thing.
It's a real thing.
And it happened in Arangerloch.
Well, I wonder when, like, the last time of that was.
I don't know. I would be interested to look into it, maybe do an extra episode just on this law, because that's fascinating and terrifying.
That is crazy to me.
Now, after that whole affair was over, Hector was given more land, and this was all before his dispute with John of Killen, who was his other nephew.
Oh!
So he had been through all of that before he tried to claim Eilean Donan.
Oh my days. Maybe it was on the basis that, well, I got through that, I can get through this.
Well, I think he saw himself as the better option. Really.
So I don't know. You always do, don't you?
Anyway, Hector usurped his nephew's role.
Yes.
On the basis that when Hector's father had died, he had left Hector half of his land.
Okay.
So he decided that he could claim Eilean Donan as part of that 50%.
Interesting. That seems fair.
It seems reasonable, but it wasn't his.
No.
His brother had it.
Yeah, it was just a technicality, really.
But he claimed because he had this inheritance that he was better suited, especially because John of Killen was seen as being illegitimate.
Yep.
And there's an irony here because he went on a private war to avenge 3 of his nephews.
Yep.
But he's completely fucking over his other nephew.
But weirdly, I think were that nephew then to suffer a horrible fate, he would probably do the same thing again.
Yeah, probably.
I can shit on my family, but nobody else can. Sounds about right, doesn't it?
Yeah, and Hector was allowed to do this. He took Eilean Donan and he installed his own constable at Eilean Donan Castle.
Well.
Who he could trust.
Damn.
And it wasn't a Macaulay anymore.
No.
It was a MacRae.
I was just about to say, was it a MacRae perhaps?
It was a MacRae constable. Malcolm MacIan Carrick MacRae.
It's a good name.
Yeah, it's a long name. So the MacRaes are back.
The MacRaes are back. The MacRaes are at Eilean Donan. Oh shit.
An account of what happened after Hector took control is detailed in History of the Western Highlands and Isles. History of the Western Highlands and Isles of Scotland by Donald Gregory. And this whole book is a PDF online.
Oh, cool.
You can find it. And I'll read to you from it now.
May I get my coffee first?
No.
Carry on. Topped up my coffee and I'm ready for story time.
Okay. Here's what it says. Hector Roy Mackenzie had, since the death of Kenneth Og Mackenzie of Kintail in 1497, and during the minority of John, the brother and heir of Kenneth, exercised the command of that clan, nominally as guardian to the young chief.
Okay, yep.
All right. Under his rule, the Clan Mackenzie became involved in feuds with the Munros and other clans, and Hector himself became obnoxious to government as a disturber of the public peace.
It's all going to his head, isn't it?
Obnoxious to government. What a brilliant title.
I know, that's pretty good.
His intentions towards the young Laird of Kintail were considered very dubious, and the apprehensions of the latter having been roused, Hector was compelled by law to yield up the estate and the command of the tribe to the proper heir.
Yep, that all just kind of checks out, doesn't it? So all the power's gone to his head, and now he just doesn't give a fuck about that guy. He's just like, well, I'm in charge though, haven't I?
That, and if he had been better at the job and not caused a fuss, they may have just let it slide.
Yeah.
But he's being a pain, so it's now in higher-ups' interest. Like, we want someone else in charge.
So, hang on, let's just get you to simmer down, you know.
Now, that last part might suggest that it all went very smoothly, that he had to yield up the estate and hand things back to John of Killen, who should have had it from the beginning. But it absolutely wasn't.
I can't see it going. I can't see him going without a fight.
No, absolutely not.
No.
He might have been compelled by law, but Hector didn't give up Eilean Donan.
Yeah.
Not for years.
People keep doing that.
They're just saying no. Something about this castle. After it had been decided that Hector couldn't keep Kintail, he carried on taking rents and kept them for himself. They were not his.
No.
He should not have kept them.
No.
He did.
Well, if the acting king can do it, anybody can do it, you know?
His nephew, John, who's been robbed,
Yep.
appealed to the king and the Privy Council to force his uncle into action.
Yeah.
And it looks like he did this a couple of times. And even though he's right to do it, it does come across as very much like telling the teacher, you won't give it to me.
I was just thinking that, like, oh, someone's a bit scared of their uncle.
Which is a shame, because he's completely in the right.
Yeah.
And they're the only ones with the power to make him do it. But it definitely comes across very, I don't know, wimpy.
Yeah. Well, oh, like, you take your man and lead them yourself, but I don't want to.
No, he stole it.
Especially because in my head, the uncle's quite like a big bear of a guy.
He seems to be quite an intimidating figure.
Yeah.
I think because he went on this crusade of vengeance.
It paints a picture.
It paints a picture of this person. The dates are a little muddy. I've read multiple versions. But the Earl of Huntly, who was another earl, took some ships that were given to him by James VI. Mm-hmm. That's a tick on your bingo card if you have one. To take back Eilean Donan Castle for the king. Because it's the king's will that someone else should have it. That hasn't happened, so Hector is acting against the king.
Yep.
I think in 1503.
Okay.
And the Earl of Huntly managed. The men defending the castle were forced to leave. And the Earl took the castle back on behalf of the king and the Mackenzies.
Okay.
To deliver what the king had ordered to be done.
Oh, yeah, I was just thinking that when do the MacRaes come back into it? But the MacRaes won't strictly have to leave, necessarily.
No, but Hector installed MacRaes as constables.
Ah, yes.
So, yeah, they did have to leave.
Because I was thinking it's going to change family, but it's actually just going to a different person within the same family.
Yes, but the MacRaes were Hector's men.
Yep, I'm with you.
In 1511, I read that Hector gave up his claim on Eilean Donan.
Fucking fine.
So this attack by the Earl of Huntly may have been 1503. Mm-hmm. So this is 1511.
Well, has he just milked it dry at that point? You know, you can have it back. I'm just going to take all the rents I've collected and go for a little retirement.
Well, he's probably just fed up of fighting.
Yeah, he's got to be quite old at that point.
I don't know dates. He gave up his claim on Eilean Donan. But the constable, Malcolm MacRae, wouldn't give in.
Oh.
Hector had to persuade his own constable to follow his orders because Malcolm wasn't having it.
Well, he's just learning from the best, isn't he?
And I know this is quite a bit after the Earl of Huntly came and they had to leave. It seems like there was a lot of back and forth.
Yeah.
Over this time, a lot of fighting. And the dates are just tricky with this one. Mm-hmm. It's hard to be completely clear. But yeah, the MacRae constable wouldn't leave.
Some say he's still there today.
He wouldn't give up, even though Hector Mackenzie had.
Well, there you go.
In 1513, Hector is given a charter for land in Gairloch.
Okay.
And it seems like this is when he properly gives up his claim on Kintail, because he's been given something else.
Yep.
That same year, both Hector and his nephew fought at the Battle of Flodden together.
Oh.
So their relationship seemed mostly mended.
Yeah. It's just business, I guess.
Yeah.
Strange.
Inheritance.
I thought he started with land in Gairloch, or was that somebody else?
He had, I think he was given additional land.
Got you.
So more land
in
and around Gairloch.
That makes sense.
I believe. Hector died in 1528, and apparently his direct descendants still own land around Gairloch.
Oh yeah?
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool. I'm not one of them, sadly.
You're not Mackenzie.
Oh yes. Obviously.
Now, I know he started as the villain in John of Killen's story.
Yep.
But I really found myself rooting for him, which is probably really bad.
Well, I started rooting for him, but I've gone off him a little bit.
Yeah.
But sounds like a bit of a badass. You got to respect that. I'm doing me. God damn it.
Yeah, I do. I find myself just admiring him a bit.
Fair play. Just like what he's got going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's certainly not the worst of people we've seen who've been in similar situations.
Unfortunately, no. He's not the worst.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you for being on his side.
In 1539, a different guy was constable of Eilean Donan Castle, since the one before couldn't really be trusted. Even though it seems his heart was in the right place, he did not get to keep the job.
Oh.
Christopher MacRae had been the new constable, and then Ian Dhu Matheson took on the role, which he had in 1539. And this is when Eilean Donan was attacked by MacDonald's from Skye.
Oh, shit.
Yes, this is when Eilean Donan was attacked by MacDonald's from Skye. They'd been feuding for a long time, so I'd mentioned they were fighting MacDonald's. But MacDonald's attacked Eilean Donan itself.
Well, they've gone for it. They've gone for gold.
They had been attacking and pillaging through Mackenzie lands, and they actually killed Christopher MacRae's brother in Kinlochhew, from what I read.
Oh, dang.
So he had been the constable. They killed his brother. And then the MacDonalds found out that Eilean Donan was poorly defended.
That doesn't sound right. That never happens.
Well, there weren't very many people at the castle at that time.
Oh.
So they thought they could take it, and then it would be very hard to get them out of there.
Well, historically, that has happened a lot. That once you're in, it's hard to get you out.
Unfortunately, the MacDonalds had not been misinformed, because at this point, there were only 2 people in Eilean Donan Castle.
Oh, well, is it really attacking the castle, or is it just wandering into the castle?
When the MacDonalds arrived, only Ian Dhu Matheson and the warden of the castle were there.
Bet that didn't feel great.
But before the battle broke out, Duncan McGilchrist, which I'm sure I'm saying wrong, showed up, just out of the blue. He was Christopher MacRae's son, and he came to help them defend the castle. So son of the previous constable.
Oh, yep.
He showed up basically just in the nick of time. And he was a big part of the battle to maintain Eilean Donan. He was fighting right at the gates of the castle, keeping the MacDonalds out.
If I know anything about a hero story, this is fitting the bill.
Right, himself.
Yep.
At the gates, keeping out the attackers.
I thought only Gimli could do that, you know.
Both Ian Dhu Matheson and the warden of Eilean Donan were killed in this attack. They were both shot with arrows, so they didn't survive. But in a true movie-style finish, Duncan, the last-minute saviour, shot the leader of the MacDonalds, Donald Gorm MacDonald of Sleat.
What?
And killed him with his very last arrow.
Oh, shit. That's something. That's almost not believable. It's so perfect.
And when the MacDonalds saw that their leader was dead, they retreated, leaving Eilean Donan just barely still in the hands of the Mackenzies.
Damn.
Because Duncan was left standing.
Well, I hope he was heavily rewarded for his efforts.
You would hope, eh? But he was not made the next constable of Eilean Donan.
What?
He was not given the job.
What kind of bullshit happened there?
Right? They said he was too thrawn, he was too headstrong, and the Mackenzies didn't want him in charge.
Oh.
They have the record that proves that MacRaes are good at turtling. There's a good chance if they get someone who's too headstrong in that castle, he won't give it back.
Well, that's true. That's true. Like, do we really want one person who managed to single-handedly defend this castle to be in this castle? Well, I mean, I can see their logic, but sounds like bullshit to me.
It's a damn shame. They opted for a guy called John Murchison, and that's the anglicised version of his name. I couldn't pronounce the Gaelic.
Fair enough.
He was a man of the church, So basically the complete opposite of Duncan. And Duncan was furious.
As you would be, as you should be.
Because he had really stuck his neck out for the Mackenzies.
Hell yeah.
You know, shirt of mail and all that. Mm-hmm. His dad was a MacRae.
Oh.
He was not happy. He was so mad that he left Kintail altogether.
Oh, dang.
And started serving Lord Lovett instead, who we talked about in our Boleskine House episode.
Yeah.
What's hilarious is that apparently there was a MacLennan in the mix to be chosen as the next constable, because they were also vassals of the Mackenzies.
Oh, yeah.
So they put someone forward. And he also wasn't chosen. And he was also really mad about it. So he shot John Murchison in the butt with an arrow. Because he was so mad.
I know that's obviously very bad and like very serious and dangerous.
It could if he gets infected, that could kill him.
But
it's the 1400s. It could kill him. I think it's or is it the 1500s?
Like, why not just kick him in the dick and walk off? You know.
Oh, it's the 1500s. I beg your pardon. It's 1539. Yeah, he shot him in the ass because he was pissed off.
Well, that's an unusual take. Mm-hmm. And I assumed Duncan basically rode off to distant lands to go and fight dragons and save cities from destruction and stuff, you know.
Well, it seems like he fought for the Frasers after that.
Go and be a hero somewhere. Because
Lord Lovett was a Fraser. Simon Fraser.
Okay, yep.
Remember, I think he's the Red Fox.
Oh, yeah.
Or, I need to look back at my notes. I may just be talking out my arse.
Who knows?
But, yeah, he didn't get chosen.
Oh, what an injustice. Mm-hmm. Bullshit. That's bullshit.
The succession of constables of Eilean Donan is a little confusing. It seems like the Mackenzies didn't have that as their main seat. Uh-huh. Eventually the Mackenzies became the Lord Seaforths.
Oh, okay.
Moving forward. So they weren't living at Eilean Donan. Mm-hmm. So they had constables in place to man the castle and protect it.
Yeah.
I think for a while it went back into Christopher MacRae's family over a few generations. Mm-hmm. So Duncan's lot. And there was another Murchison minister who was constable. But it's not completely essential we know everyone. So I'm not going to dwell on it.
We are presumably going to roll on to the 1700s when it gets constructed for the last time.
No, we're going to talk about Facher MacRae.
Oh.
And I'm not just insulting you.
Yeah, another Facher. It's not the first time I've been called that.
No, but he was a minister. So, dodgy name for a minister. Mm. And weirdly, lots of MacRae ministers.
From what I know of the MacRaes, that is surprising.
Right? Mm. Kenneth Mackenzie was the laird at the time, Chief Mackenzie. He met Facher in Edinburgh in the late 1500s, early 1600s. And he was so impressed with his work that Kenneth invited him to come north and preach in Kintail.
Damn.
He wanted him on his land and he wanted him to be the minister there. Weirdly, another version of this I read was that Facher was born in Eilean Donan Castle and his father had been the constable there.
Oh.
They may both be true. Maybe Facher moved south and then that's how they met, but very confusing. Facher agreed and he worked as a preacher and a teacher, and he was really popular with all the English people who had travelled north to work outside Gairloch because there was an ironworks there.
Oh.
And he didn't only speak Gaelic, so he could preach and talk to them in English. So they liked him.
That makes sense. Do we know who his mum is? Mother Facher.
You look so happy. It makes me sick. Now, this might interest you. Facher MacRae actually preached to people around Loch Broom for a while.
Oh, wow. That's where I'm from. That's cool.
And in 1610, the Mackenzies took control of Lewis in a pretty baller way.
Well, it's not an easy thing to do. There's quite a treacherous bit of water separating the two.
They bought it.
Oh, well. Well. That is baller.
They bought the Isle of Lewis. because King James VI had given the island to lowlanders, and the Mackenzies bought it from them.
I mean, a lowlander wouldn't know. A lowlander wouldn't know what to do with Lewis, would they?
No, very, very far removed. And this is like long after Hector Mackenzie. This is long after the MacLeods who were on Lewis were so offended at the thought of having anything to do with the Mackenzies, they slaughtered them.
Yep.
Now they own it.
History's funny like that, isn't it?
Right. So when this happened, when the Mackenzies took ownership of it, Kenneth Mackenzie took Facher over to Lewis to, quote, restore the spiritual climate of the island, unquote, because there hadn't been a minister there for 40 years.
Wow.
Which, with how I understand Lewis to be now, that's just unthinkable.
Yeah, that's crazy.
There's a lot of people in Lewis who are very religious.
Mm-hmm. It's funny how this started with somebody being murdered for bringing Christianity over.
Yeah.
And there's so many just like ministers going about the place now. 1,000 years later.
It's funny, isn't it?
Yeah, funny thing that.
The crowds that came to get baptised by Facher when he came to the island were so large that apparently he had to dip big sprigs of heather into holy water and fling it over the crowds to get everyone.
Wow.
And it makes sense because he was baptising everyone who had missed it for 40 years.
It's going to be a lot of people.
But he was just flinging holy water with sprigs of heather.
Come forth, my son, and be slapped by thy holy heather leaf. Whap.
Heather's rough as well.
Yeah, that'd be uncomfortable.
He also married loads of people who had been living in sin.
Not him to himself, presumably.
No, to each other.
Oh, so that's taken a turn.
He performed marriages.
Yes.
Because there was no minister to marry anyone, so it was common law marriage. So he also made countless children legitimate for the first time.
Well.
Because he was marrying people.
There's a lot of poor souls who will have missed out in that 40-year stretch. Ew.
And then the year after that, he got married himself.
Well, that's nice. Not to everybody.
No. No. He performed lots of marriages. It's different. In 1616, Facher was offered a much better job in Edinburgh than the one that he had up north. But he turned it down.
Oh.
He preferred to stay where he was because he felt like he was doing much more good in and around Kintail.
Well, that's nice.
And helped a lot of people. So he turned down more money and more prestige.
Good guy. Good guy. We need more like him across history.
And it was then in 1618 that Facher became the constable of Eilean Donan. Because initially he was just brought up as a preacher.
Yeah.
But then he was made constable. And by all accounts, he was really generous with everything that he had been given. He was quite happy sharing everything that he had. He seemed like a really good guy.
Yeah. I wonder if it kind of shows how the climate was, whether the constable was like a minister or a warrior, because it seems to kind of flicks between the two. Like, well, we need to defend it right now. Okay, it's actually kind of peace times. We need somebody to help the people.
Well, it definitely shows that they're more interested in like culture and education, than they are about defence.
Yeah, because it implies it doesn't need defended. At least not actively. It's always defended because it's a castle, and there's probably somebody who'd like to come and nick it. But they don't need as strong a force. It's interesting.
Very interesting. In 1623, Colin Mackenzie of Kintail, who was the chief at the time, was given a new title, which I just mentioned a few minutes ago. He became the first Earl of Seaforth.
Oh, yes.
And he started living at Shannonry Point.
Oh.
Which we talked about in our Bran Seer episode.
Yes, we did.
So that's the main time we've talked about the Mackenzies before now.
Yep. Was it a Mackenzie that the Bran Seer was like, he's off having sex with everybody?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was Lady Seaforth that he pissed off.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
It's a good episode.
The Mackenzies.
If you haven't listened to it.
So it was at this point that they got that title. Now, Facher had to entertain Colin when he came to visit.
Oh, he arrests 50 people and beheads them.
No, that time has passed.
Okay.
He's still a minister. And he was actually the tutor of Colin's grandson, who was raised at Eilean Donan for a while. Mm-hmm. So again, like, it's about education and culture.
Yeah.
In 1650, though, Fakir was booted from his role as constable.
What?
Even though he was pretty old by this point. He was 70. And it seems like the push to get him out came from Colin's brother. He didn't want him there. But Fakir didn't complain. He went to live near Gairloch and was looked after by some of his grandchildren. He'd had several children with his wife, Christina, but she had died by this time. He was looked after by his grandkids. And he was actually the last constable that would live in the castle for a really long time.
Oh.
And he died in 1662.
Huh. How, I'm sure you're about to tell me, how can you be a constable and not live at the castle?
Well, I'm going to tell you.
Because surely being the constable of the castle involves you being at the castle. Because otherwise, you're just doing the same position as the person who owns the castle.
So many questions.
So many questions.
Well, first, Fakir died in 1662 after seeing Charles II made king. So we're in sort of Covenanter era. Lots of religious upset.
Yes.
And Fakir had wanted to see him king. At one point, royalist forces who were supporting Charles came through Fakir's land and took 350 of his cows.
How rude.
And then, even though Charles had won ultimately, Fakir wouldn't go to the king to be reimbursed, because in his eyes, just having the king back on the throne was payment enough.
Damn.
He was very passionate about it.
I don't think people are that passionate about our current King Charles.
Charles, maybe.
He stole my cows.
The Earl of Seaforth was also a supporter of the royals. But when Charles I was executed, Parliament forces came to Eilean Donan to use it as a base. Mm-hmm. And the government forces weren't great. They had clashed a lot with the people who were living in Kintail almost immediately. They, at one point, ravaged Kintail land in revenge for the death of one of the commanders of the garrison.
Oh.
So there had been some kind of accident, some kind of incident. Mm-hmm. But the government soldiers took it out on all the surrounding area and were very dangerous.
It's not a good way to lead.
No. So they weren't getting along with the locals. In 1650, soldiers approached locals to get supplies from them while they were still in the castle, having done all of these horrible things. And the locals said no to shove off.
Yeah.
A fight broke out and the soldiers had to flee. The locals went in on them hard. They were not having it. They were fed up. And then the whole garrison left.
That's how you claim Eilean Donan Castle. Mm-hmm. Well, there you go.
They were sick of the treatment.
Yeah. Whew. Good on them. Mm-hmm. Good on them.
So yeah, by this point, I think that was why Fakir had to leave.
Okay, yep.
Because he died in 1662.
Yeah.
And Parliament had taken the castle long before then. So I'm assuming he wasn't there.
Yeah.
But I could be wrong on that.
Maybe.
I'm not an expert. I just have a hobby. So yeah, they just got rid of them.
Well, that's good work. So who went into the castle after that?
Well, we've now made it to the 1700s. It's 1715, it's the Jacobite Rising.
Yes.
So more unrest, more war, more fighting.
As usual.
Yes. The Earls of Seaforth supported the Jacobites. So they supported the James's claim to the throne.
Yeah.
Because they had been booted by this time in favour of William and Mary. Mm-hmm. With me?
With you.
The Earl of Seaforth gathered Clan Mackenzie and Clan MacRae to fight for King James. Mm-hmm. And Clan MacRae gathered at Eilean Donan Castle before setting out for battle at Sheriffmuir.
Interesting.
Now, Sheriffmuir is near Stirling. But as we know, the Jacobites didn't win the Rising in 1715.
It's not great.
But a slightly cheerier thought is that apparently, before they went to war, the MacRaes danced on the roof of the castle.
Oh, well, that's fun.
In what seems like a very drunken evening.
See, that's how they should have entertained the William the Earl way back. Thomas Randolph way back at the start of the episode.
Right?
That's how they should have done it.
Way more fun.
I'd love to see people dancing on the roof of a castle.
But Sheriffmuir was a pretty big defeat for the Jacobites, as I recall. It's kind of what ended the 1715 rebellion. But there was another rising in 1719, which doesn't get talked about as often.
No, I don't remember this one.
In this rising, Spanish soldiers came to Scotland to support them in fighting for King James. And Spanish soldiers occupied Eilean Donan in 1719.
That's a funny thought.
And they turtled in there. It wasn't a huge force. They sort of, what's the proper word? Not turtling, but fortified?
Yeah, hunkered down.
While they were waiting for Spanish ships to deliver more weapons and cannons. But before the Spanish could arrive, British government ships arrived. Now, the British government attacked Eilean Donan Castle for 3 days, but it held up against cannon fire surprisingly well.
Oh, well.
Because the walls are so thick.
Damn.
That the cannonballs really weren't making that much of a dent.
Crazy. That is a well-built castle.
3 days of cannon fire.
Oh.
And you're right on the water.
Yeah, just be like, are we even hitting it? Like, what's happening here?
The soldiers, the government soldiers who were on the ships, began attacking the castle in person. And before long, overpowered the Spanish soldiers that were inside. Because there weren't that many of them. They were pretty outnumbered. But when the British government investigated the castle, they discovered the stash of gunpowder that the Spaniards had in there.
Oh.
343 barrels of it.
Oh, that's... Oh no, that's a lot just to keep in one place. An errant match.
That's under fire.
Yeah. An errant match and the whole castle is obliterated.
The whole island would be obliterated. It
would become a crater that would then fill with water, and then suddenly 3 locks are connected.
It's like it was never there.
Yeesh.
Now, the government forces knew exactly what they were going to do with this gunpowder. They used it to blow up Eilean Donan Castle.
Well, it's just right there, isn't it? And we've learned from other wars that taking down castles as you capture them is a good tactic.
So they can't be held against you. So that's exactly what they did.
Yep.
Surprised?
Yep. Did they blow it up?
Yeah, they blew it up.
Oh. So, I guess there isn't a big crater that then connected the 3 locks.
Well, no. Before I get into the later history, there's a suggestion that the British government actually only took the castle.
Okay.
But it was the MacRaes who blew it up. Even though the government already had it.
Well.
And then the government didn't want to admit that they got, so they said that they blew it up.
Interesting. Oh yeah, that was totally our idea. Well, that's interesting. What happened? I didn't see this coming.
This is why I said that your guesses were largely good guesses.
Well, I did say further modifications in the 1700s. Just not a complete rebuild because it got blown up.
Well, this blowing up of the castle pretty much destroyed it.
It would with 380 barrels of gunpowder.
Yeah, and it sat abandoned and barely there anymore for almost 200 years.
Wow. Through to the 1900s.
No one lived there or did anything with Eilean Donan until 1911.
Whoa.
It had been blown up in 1719.
That is so much more recent than I expected.
So this is what makes this castle episode a little bit different.
What? That's wild.
The island was bought by Lieutenant Colonel John MacRae Gilstrap, who I'm going to call Gilstrap because it's funny.
That is funny.
He bought the island, and he was a descendant of the MacRaes who had moved to Concra, which is near Kyle. And I might be saying that wrong. Concra, Contra. As his title of Lieutenant Colonel would suggest, he was an army man.
No.
He was. And he had been born in India.
Oh, cool.
His father had been a surgeon with the East India Company. And they were in India during the Indian Rebellion of 1857, which was a rough time for Indian people.
Yeah.
I read that about 800,000 Indian people were killed in that rebellion, compared to about 6,000 British people.
Oh my God. Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's really fucking gnarly.
That is.
And it meant that the rulers of India became the British monarchy rather than the East India Company.
Oh.
That was the upshot of the rebellion.
Oh, God. Ooh.
Yeah. Vastly unfair. Really, like, black spot on British history, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
And I think a lot of people are quick to acknowledge that the English had a lot to do in India, but so did Scottish people. A lot of Scottish people made a lot of money out in India
Yeah.
during this period.
Oh.
So that's where he was born. That's where he started out.
Well, he obviously did well enough for himself to buy... Well, I mean, I don't suppose buying a ruined castle is that expensive. But if he then does it up, it'd be quite expensive.
Yeah, in 1883, so before he bought the castle, Gilstrap joined the Black Watch, which was the Royal Highland Regiment, which we talked about in our Colonel Anne episode a little bit. And he served in Egypt, Sudan, and Malta. And then he married a woman called Mary Gilstrap, who was an heiress.
Ah.
And when her father died, that was when he took on the surname MacRae Gilstrap. It was hyphenated, because that was in her dad's will, that the name would get passed on.
Yeah.
And explains how Gilstrap afforded Eilean Donan.
That would do it.
They were very, very, very wealthy.
I wonder how you meet an heiress. Asking for a friend.
Why do you need to know?
It's research for a book.
Hey, there's a very large and very fancy toolbox that I've been informed by my father that is for me.
That is true. That is true. I've seen it.
So I'm kind of an heiress. I'm getting a toolbox one day. And it's almost the height of me.
It is. Well, if I can borrow some of those tools,
I don't know.
I'll use them to build a castle. We're off track here.
Just before Gilstrap bought Eilean Donan, there was a contest over who should be chief of Clan MacRae. Which was an odd one, because up until then, there hadn't really been a chief of Clan MacRae.
That was my thought.
Like, ever. And I think it's because they were vassals of the Mackenzies. They didn't really have a chief.
Oh, that's interesting.
Certainly not an officially recognised one.
Yeah.
In 1909, Sir Colin MacRae of Inverinate said, "Hey, I should be chief of Clan MacRae, since everyone already thinks I am, and just don't check if that's true."
It's a strong tactic. Did it work?
Well, I mean, he said that verbatim. I found that. Just don't ask me where.
Sources.
But unbeknownst to Colin, when he announced that everyone thought of him as chief of Clan MacRae already, and it's just a formality, you should just give me the title, Gilstrap had already considered a scenario where someone tried to claim the title of chief.
Yep.
So preemptively, before Colin had ever done that, Gilstrap had spoken to a man called Lord Leon about everything on the down low, because he was the one who ran the court that the theoretical case, would be presented to.
Interesting.
And Gilstrap was like, "Hey, if anyone ever tries to make themselves chief of Clan MacRae, could you just let me know about it? And then that gives me time to prepare to contest their claim. I'm not going to claim it right now because I don't actually want it, but I'm going to fight anyone that tries to claim it."
Oh, I see. Because that was my next thought. Like, why doesn't he just claim it initially? Well, because I was confused, because there's no clan system at that point. So a chief title is ceremonial at best.
Yeah, basically.
But I can fully understand not wanting someone else to have it.
That's basically what he wanted. I don't want it, but I don't want someone else to have it. So
Yeah.
can you just let me know? So Lord Leon got the claim from Colin MacRae, and then Gilstrap was notified behind Colin's back.
Yep.
And then both of the MacRaes were present at the court hearing.
I object.
Well, I read the petition that was presented to the court, and there was quite a few things that came across super fucking petty.
Oh.
Like, it's unreal that these are grown men.
Hit me.
Fighting over an imaginary title at this point, because post-Culloden, clan system didn't exist anymore.
No, it doesn't mean anything.
But they're fighting about it.
And it's not even like, I'll give you the right to the castle, because seemingly it was never really a MacRae castle.
Well, no.
It was just somewhere...
MacRaes were there for a long time.
Where MacRaes lived.
It was their home.
Yeah.
But it didn't belong to them.
Which is definitely the impression I had when I think of Eilean Donan as a MacRae castle.
Well, there's a reason you think of it as a MacRae castle, which I am getting to.
I assumed so.
There is a reason for that. So in the petition that I read that was presented to the court and the documents that showed what happened in court, Colin made the argument that Gilstrap had no business being there at all, saying that, Colin, I'm an eldest son, so I have the right to do this. Gilstrap's only a second son.
Oh.
So he shouldn't even be here.
Why? What century does this guy think he's in?
I know. I know.
What is happening here?
So Gilstrap fired back with, quote, I am here to protect myself and to say that I will not acknowledge the Inveroninate branch in any shape or form as the chief of Clan MacRae and as my chief, unquote.
As my chief? Like what? Oh. What is happening here? What's going on?
And then Gilstrap went on and said, quote, all the MacRae families are more or less on an equality. They're a clan which had no chief other than Seaforth, unquote. Which historically seems to be the case.
Yeah.
Seaforth is Chief Mackenzie.
I think that's a fair statement.
So because they were Mackenzie vassals, that seems to be the way it was. Mm-hmm. That seems genuine. So from all I saw, Colin was unsuccessful.
Yeah.
He didn't get what he wanted because what he said wasn't true.
Well, good, because he sounds like a little bitch.
Like, he said that everyone considered him chief anyway. And Gilstrap turned up just to be like, he's lying.
Yeah, I can perfectly imagine the type of person who would say that.
Yeah.
Oh.
An arsehole.
An arsehole. It's the same type of person who'd go in The Apprentice.
Yeah. But Gilstrap wasn't made chief either.
Well, that's okay, because it doesn't seem like he wanted to be.
No, it seems like a chief wasn't chosen.
Yep.
From what I saw, though, which is just really, really cringe, is that Colin just decided to call himself chief anyway.
Oh, God.
Because he wanted to. Like, it doesn't bring him anything. But it's just super cringe.
It's really cringy. Oh.
It's like that TikTok that went viral for a while of the guy who gets super irate and angry, and he's like, I'm like part of Clan Strathclyde, and I know what I'm talking about, and it doesn't exist.
No. It's just, you can say that in the way that anyone can say anything. You can call yourself whatever you want to. It doesn't mean it means anything.
Well, yeah, you could say that you're like, I'm the CEO of this company.
Yeah.
Or
I could start calling myself Emperor MacRae. Doesn't mean anything.
Well, yes. Oh, well, I've said it, so it's true.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, by the same token, you could say you're chief of Clan MacRae.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way.
Whereas I'm just chief of the secret underground MacRaes.
The cool MacRaes.
Don't tell anyone.
It's okay. You guys are already in the club.
Yeah.
You have free entry. Don't worry.
Don't even worry about it. Just say GSP for life at the door, and you'll get straight in to this imaginary club I own.
That's the Patreon, baby. So a couple years later, after this contest, it aggravates me so much.
That's so stupid.
1911 or 12, Gilstrap bought Eilean Donan.
Yes.
And he bought the island because the castle barely existed anymore.
Yeah. That makes sense.
He started work to preserve the ruins of the ancient castle. So he wasn't planning on building anything. Mm-hmm. It was just to preserve it in its current state. So like some bits were still there and some bits were still standing. but very little of it. It was a typical renovation scenario because he planned to keep things within a tight budget. He planned to just preserve the ruins as they were so people could come and see.
Yeah.
But between him and the stonemason he hired, who was also called Fachar MacRae, by the way,
Oh, well.
the plan just expanded and expanded until they decided they were going to rebuild the castle.
That is good work on Fachar MacRae. You know, he's making his own work.
Yeah, for a stonemason, of course he's going to say that.
I know, right? That seems very MacRae-like.
No, what happened next was very MacRae-like.
Okay.
Because this all came about because Fachar said he had a dream about the castle where he saw it completely restored and he knew that's what they had to do.
You've got to have a story.
That's the most MacRae thing I've ever heard. No. It's not just about the money. It's noble. I have a plan. It's gonna be great.
I come from a long line of bullshitters, so that checks out.
It was the most MacRae thing I'd ever heard. And it made me laugh a lot.
Well,
now this was around 1912, like I already said. Gilstrap actually served in World War One.
oh,
Although I struggled to find where he actually served. I looked him up on Ancestry and everything, but I couldn't find a service record. But he did serve in war, and he didn't come home until 1919.
okay.
And that's when he met with Fachar MacRae about the bigger plans that they had for the castle. Because obviously he's not going to be doing any kind of building while he's at war.
Well, it's almost a funny thought to just come home like, well, now that's out of the way. We were building this castle. Like, oh, yeah. Let's, what's that, 5 years ago we started talking about that? Yeah, let's just pick up where we left off.
Let's rebuild my ancestral home.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I had to go and serve in a war. Like, no, it's fine, mate. I had some work anyway.
I had to nip out for a minute.
Yeah, I was building a 20-mile long dike, so, you know.
I had to take a call. Gilstrap hired George Mackey Watson to design the new old castle. And they moved forward with a very ambitious plan to restore the castle to what it had been before it was blown to bits. All in all, it cost £250,000 to restore Eilean Donan
Okay.
in the early 1900s.
Seems like a lot, but less than I thought.
From what I saw, £100 in 1919 would be worth about $6,500 today.
Ooh, yeah, that seems more like it.
So this is a serious amount of money.
Wait, that's math I can't even do.
Well, I looked up the conversion, that's what I saw. It could be wrong, but it was a hell of a lot of money.
That's a lot. Yeah, that seems more like it, because having seen the castle today, it is beautiful.
So it's a good thing he had his wife's inheritance.
I know, that's lucky. I don't think his army pension would quite cover that.
I don't think so, no.
Probably sizable as a lieutenant.
Lieutenant Colonel.
Lieutenant Colonel.
The project to rebuild Eilean Donan wasn't finished until 1932.
That I would believe.
13 years.
Yeah, it's
give or
almost
take.
faster than I thought.
To rebuild a castle, yeah. I mean, how long has it taken to Jewel at A9? Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
But luckily, Gilstrap did live to see the project completed.
Good.
And it was during this reconstruction of the castle that the iconic bridge leading to the castle was built.
Ah.
Which you will have seen.
Yep, if you've seen a picture, you'll know.
Yes. It seems like such an integral part of the castle, but it obviously wasn't there before.
Well, that's what I had in my head when you talked about the
hornwork?
Yes, the horny bit. That's what I imagined. I thought it was the bridge and stuff.
No, it was a different shape added onto the castle.
Interesting.
That stuck out. The bridge was only built in the 1900s.
Before 1932.
After serving in the war, Gilstrap also had a World War I memorial built at the castle.
Oh, that's nice.
I wasn't sure if you knew that.
Nope.
And it honours the 468 MacRaes who died in World War I.
Oh.
And Lieutenant Colonel John MacRae, but it's a slightly different spelling. It's M-A-C and then C-R-A-E.
Okay, yep.
Is included in this list. He was from Canada and was a surgeon in the army. Oh. And he's extremely well known because he wrote the poem In Flanders Fields.
I've heard of that.
And lines of this poem are also on the memorial.
Oh.
Have you heard of the poem?
I have heard of the poem.
It was written about the fighting that happened in Ypres in Belgium in 1915. And John MacRae died during the war. He died of pneumonia in 1918.
Oh. That's a shame.
And it's because of the poem Flanders Fields that poppies are a symbol of remembrance.
Oh.
Because he wrote about poppies in the poem.
Wow. Powerful.
Very, very powerful. Very, very powerful.
The message, not him.
Yeah. But that's how influential and moving people found this poem. And that's why the poem's on the memorial at Eilean Donan.
Yeah.
Because it's I don't want to say it's a MacRae castle, because it has this long history of not being so, but it's become the seat of Clan MacRae.
Yep.
Latterly.
Now that it's meaningless.
Kind of. Another link to the Canadian MacRaes are the wooden ceiling beams that were used in the banqueting hall.
Cool.
Because they were a gift that was shipped from Canada, from the MacRaes there.
Well, that's pretty cool.
To use in the rebuild.
Yeah. Very cool.
And there's an inscription above the main door of the castle that reads, "As long as there is a MacRae inside, there will never be a Fraser outside," to honour the friendship between the two clans.
Oh, that's nice.
Although historically they had feuded with each other. But Gilstrap had actually bought Eilean Donan from a Fraser.
Oh. Well, I quite like that. I quite like that. Because even though historically they feuded, that's the case with pretty much everyone everywhere in Scotland.
Yeah, everyone's fought everyone, and then everyone's been friends with everyone.
So if anything to preserve friendship can only be a good thing in my brain.
Absolutely. So Eilean Donan is back.
We're back, baby.
And Gilstrap died in 1937. So just 5 years after the castle was finished.
Well, did he live there for 5 years, I wonder?
I don't know if he lived there. It wasn't open to the public then. Eilean Donan didn't open to the public until 1955. So he may have done.
I suggest he would have.
And it was open to the public by Gilstrap's grandson.
Ah, who, lost all his inheritance to this castle.
Yeah.
Unless it's a visitor centre, just owning a castle isn't very profitable.
No, it's a big money drain.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're the royals, because then we just pay for it.
Well, that's it, unless you just use tax money to do it.
The Concra, I'm still not convinced I'm saying that right, but the Concra Trust was created in 1983 by the MacRaes so that the castle would always be looked after.
Oh.
So now it's in their hands.
That's always a good thing, I think.
And they still have it now, in the present. And it's one of the most popular tourist destinations in Scotland.
Yeah. It's so funny, knowing the full history of it.
Well, I do have some spooky stuff.
You got the spooks?
If you would care to hear it.
I would. Well, with a 200-year gap, that's not great for passing along spooky stories from across the years.
It seems to be kind of a problem, because in terms of spooky, like strictly spooky, Eilean Donan is kind of sparse.
Strictly spooking.
And that only just went into my brain. I was already on my second and third thought. It took a minute for that to go in. What was kind of maddening though, and I've had it before when I've researched episodes, when, there's not a lot of ghost stories, people on the internet get really mad about it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Because there aren't many ghost stories attached to Eilean Donan. There's a couple of interesting legends attached to the castle in the area, which I'm going to tell you. But just a couple of ghost stories. But people on the internet leaving comments and writing about it get really angry that there aren't more ghosts.
Well...
And it's the weirdest thing.
Yeah, that's strange, isn't it? But these stories get passed down across the years. Because, well, there's a lot of bloody history, lots of opportunity for ghosts. Not that I think there are any.
Good thing you're here.
I know, right? But because to me, that means Eilean Donan Castle is only, 90 years old. It's not a 700-year-old castle. Because if it was a ruin and then with 200 years and then rebuilt, to me it's just separate. It's just in the same place. So they've built a new castle where the old one used to be. So how many 90-year-old buildings are filled with ghosts.
I just don't know why you would get angry about it.
That I don't understand at all.
I don't get it.
No, it's just not any ghosts. What the fuck do you mean?
So I came across that a lot in my research. People getting really angry. So that was fun.
Always.
The first ghost story I have for you is that the castle is haunted by a Spanish soldier that staff have nicknamed Carlos. He's been seen around the exhibition area of the castle, and footsteps have been heard, which people have attributed to him walking around.
Interesting.
And the story is that he was part of the Spanish garrison in 1719 and was killed in the bombardment or the attack on the castle. It's a very eerie thought if it is true, because that means he was alone in the castle and the ruins for a really long time.
Yeah.
Because it was abandoned after that bombardment.
He got killed, came back, and then everyone left. He's like, I'm here to haunt your asses. At least have the decency to hang around for it.
Wakes up as in his deathly form just as all the ships are leaving.
Oh, well, at least I've got this castle all to myself. What happened to the castle?
So everything's just lightly smoking.
What's that smell?
It's quite an eerie thought.
Yeah.
A ghost being alone on an island for that long.
Spooky.
Mm-hmm. People also claim to have seen a woman called Lady Mary in one of the bedrooms, but there is no information about who she is or what her connection to the castle might be. People were speculating that it's Mary, Queen of Scots.
Always.
Because it's a Scottish castle, so obviously you can't throw a stone here without hitting Queen Mary's ghost. But I don't see why that would be remotely the case.
Well, we've had that's come up a lot, and there's been some pretty tenuous links to like, maybe she was here at one point, but to just pick a random castle to go and haunt seems unlikely.
Why would you haunt somewhere that you just visited one time for a bit?
I don't know.
What's also interesting about these reports of ghosts are that they come from when the castle was reopened. There aren't historical reports of ghosts being there.
I imagine it's the same people who get angry there aren't ghost stories. Like, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to go there and prove that there is a ghost. And then they see a ghost. Like, oh, well, that's surprising, isn't it? That you really, really wanted to see one, and then you did.
Well, it's interesting to me because sometimes with the older places, you get the historical stories of people who were there a long time ago and were convinced they were seeing something strange.
Yeah.
This isn't the case here. And then it's funny to me to imagine that just all the MacRaes are like you.
And put that together.
So while they were in charge, they're just like, nope.
Are there ghosts here? No. None? No. Why would there be? There's no such thing.
What's all that groaning and chain clanking? Oh, nothing.
No, the wind.
The legends around Eilean Donan are better than the ghost stories, though.
Well, that's good. Well, there's that legend about the dragon who vitrified the stone.
No, you made that one up. MacRae of Eilean Donan.
Well, it's no different to the ghost stories.
The first story I have for you explains the origins of Eilean Donan Castle.
Okay.
Way back in the 1200s, a clan chief, not living in Eilean Donan because it's not built yet, remember?
Yep.
Became aware of a prophecy that was bothering many of his people in his court. The prophecy said that if a newborn baby took their first drink from a raven's skull, totally chill, then the baby would grow up with otherworldly powers.
I think if a baby takes its first drink from a raven's skull, it needs more supervision and better parents.
I mean, it's a very strange superhero origin story.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of here for it.
Yep.
The prophecy bothered the clan chief, and he decided to put the whole thing to rest, because he was fed up of hearing it, fed up of people being scared by it. So he got his newborn son to drink from a raven's skull. And everyone was horrified. Obviously. But when the whole place fell silent and everybody paused after the child finished drinking, nothing happened.
A man after my own heart. I like it.
So everyone was happy. It had been put to bed. However, as the boy got older, strange things started happening that nobody could really explain.
He has the gift.
Mm-hmm. The chief caught his son apparently speaking with a whole bunch of ravens. And it turns out that a flock of ravens is called an unkindness.
I thought it was called oh, no, crows are a murder, isn't it? Oh.
A flock of ravens is an unkindness.
Eee.
So the boy was speaking with an unkindness of ravens.
That's a cool statement.
Mm-hmm. The chief didn't like it one bit. So even though it was entirely his fault, he got angry at his son.
Maybe he's not a man after my own heart.
But his son couldn't understand why his father was so mad at him.
Yeah.
He didn't get it. The boy got older, and he and his father continued not getting along because his father was just raging at him all the time for something that he caused. And it all came to a head when the chief couldn't even hear himself think because his great hall was filled with the sound of screeching, screaming ravens.
Oh, that would be chilling.
Mm-hmm. Now, even though he had just been raging at his son for his whole life, he summoned him and demanded that he translate what the ravens were saying, even though he had told his son he didn't want him talking to birds. Now that it suited him, he was like, "Come here, sort this for me."
Were they saying, "Floop is a madman, help us, save us"?
I don't think they were familiar with Spy Kids.
Okay.
The boy listened carefully to the ravens and became pale. He told his father that the ravens were delivering a prophecy, but the chief wasn't going to like it. The boy gave his father an out, even at this point, and warned him that he would be angry about it, so checked whether or not he actually wanted to hear it. The chief was obstinate. He demanded to hear the raven's prophecy.
Okay.
The boy said the day would come when his father would wait on him in this very hall, as if he were a servant, not a chief, when his son returned home as a successful, powerful grown man.
Ooh. Well, if you've spent your whole life mad at your son, that's not what you're going to want to hear.
No, the chief reacted as any parent would. He threw his son out of the house and told him not to come back, and told him he wasn't his son anymore. So mean.
So mean.
He did this in the first place.
I know.
He caused all of this. The boy wasn't left with many options, so he decided to sail to France in hope of starting a new life there for himself.
Fair enough, fair enough.
However, when he reached France, word reached him that the French king was being plagued by sparrows.
Ah. Good thing we've got a man who can talk to birds.
Mm-hmm. The Birdman, if you will.
Birdman.
The boy went to the king and told him about his abilities. He told him what he could do. He spoke to the sparrows and convinced them to leave the royal palace to give the royal family some peace.
Huh, okay.
The king was deeply grateful that the birds were gone and allowed the boy to work for other members of the royal court and earn an excellent living.
Oh, very good.
Using his powers.
I imagine being plagued by crows to be a very, doom and gloom and deathly experience. But I imagine being plagued by sparrows is being plagued by a 7-year-old who's had his first Red Bull.
Yeah, just imagine the noise.
Yeah.
The constant noise.
Just being chattered at.
Pooping on the floor. Not good. The boy grew into a man who had built a great reputation for himself. He had lots of money and he had the favour of the French king. So things were looking pretty good.
They called him Sparrow Boy.
When he was grown, he decided to go back to the home of his father, hoping that he would have forgiven him by now. But when he arrived, his father didn't recognise him, since he had changed so much. His father welcomed this evidently wealthy stranger into the Great Hall, hoping to make an ally because he could tell he had money, and served him wine and food himself, fulfilling the prophecy that had led to his son's exile.
Boom, baby.
What isn't clear in the story is whether or not his father recognised him, or if he ever told his father who he was. But while the man was back in Scotland, King Alexander heard about his visit and wanted to keep this rich, famous Scot in Scotland. So he offered/ordered the man to build a fortress on Eilean Donan.
Ah.
And according to this legend, the man became the very first chief of Clan Matheson.
That's pretty cool. As far as, origin stories go. I like that. I like that a lot.
Right?
Yeah.
I'd never come across it before.
No. And I've never come across anything like it before. Apart from ravens carrying prophecies. That's what they do to the dwarves in Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
Or The Hobbit.
There are also legends of selkies living in the lochs around Eilean Donan. In one story, 3 brothers see 3 selkie women in their human forms on the shore of the loch. Mm-hmm. And they steal their skins and force them to be their wives, which is super really fun.
Hayley's just mad about it because that's what happened to her.
Excuse me, as if. The oldest brother was the baddest of the bunch, and he actually burned his wife's sealskin, so she was forced to stay with him. But by doing this, he actually burned his wife to death.
Ooh.
The middle brother wasn't as bad as his older brother, but his wife managed to find her sealskin and ran away before he could stop her.
Oh.
The youngest brother felt so bad about what he had done, seeing his wife so sorrowful and unhappy, that he was the only one to just give her back her sealskin.
Oh, well, that's nice.
Giving her the choice to leave and go back home. And she was so grateful that they continued to meet every 9th night, even though she had the option to spend the rest of her life away from humans completely.
Would have been a good job. There's a lot of humans who want to spend their life like that too.
Right. Another mythical creature that supposedly lives in the water surrounding Eilean Donan were the Otter Kings.
The Otter King? Well, that's exciting.
Mm-hmm. Another legend I hadn't come across, but I'm glad that I did. They weren't as cute as you might hope.
Did they eat off their tummies?
I really hope so. I hope to God that they did. Otter Kings would eat other animals and were really dangerous. They're a type of fairy creature. And apparently they were, quote, white with black rimmed ears and a black cross on his back, or could be pure black with a spot of white on his belly, unquote.
Interesting.
If you managed to capture an Otter King, it would have to grant you a wish to get free.
Fair play.
And ancient peoples would hunt Otter Kings for their skins, which apparently would, quote, provide protection against drowning and to render a warrior invincible, unquote.
That's pretty cool.
But Otter Kings were also really difficult to kill, so hunting wasn't often successful.
Yep.
The only way to kill an Otter King was to strike them in a spot under their chin.
Oh.
You had to get them just right.
Just right. Right in their Achilles chin.
Yes.
So the Otter King wasn't just lots of otters with their tails tied together?
No, it's not like a rat king.
Okay. That's
the
good.
legend goes that Eilean Donan, the island, not the castle, was the burial ground of the Otter Kings.
Ooh.
So it has this mythical quality.
That's cool.
But that was all new to me. I'd
Brand
never
new.
heard of Otter Kings before.
Nope. I'm not surprised that otters are thought of as a mythical beast, though, because they're quite rare.
They're so cool.
Yeah. Little otters. Oh, that's pretty badass.
I have one last legend for you.
Don't you mean you have one otter legend?
Nope, last one.
Okay.
I'm going to have to get some water because my throat is very sore. The last legend I have for you is something I mentioned way, way back in our Loch Ness Monster episode.
Oh, that is going back.
I believe.
Okay.
So our finale of our first season, we were but babes.
Historical babes.
Yeah. Apparently, Loch Duach, which is one of the lochs that Eilean Donan sits on, is the home of a sea serpent, much like Nessie.
Interesting.
Reverend John MacRae spotted the sea serpent way back in 1872.
Yes.
And I talked about this very briefly in our Loch Ness Monster episode.
Yes. Because I was, delighted that a MacRae had spotted a sea serpent.
Yep.
Oh.
This is that guy.
Well, there you go.
He described it as having lots of lumps, one after the other in the water. He and the person he was with saw it moving around behind the boat. It vanished, and then it reappeared again.
Oh.
He saw as many as 7 lumps at one time, along with a head. And the Reverend thought it looked like the creature was trying to warm itself in the sun.
Ah.
But he said that it didn't undulate. So, like a wave.
Yeah.
It wasn't winding. It just had lumps.
Yes.
And the lumps appeared together or not at all. So they didn't appear in a wave.
Oh, I see.
So they all came up and they all went down.
Ooh.
Instead of like a dolphin.
Freaky.
And he reckoned that the creature was about 45 feet long.
Hefty. Damn.
Mm-hmm. He wrote about it in, I think he has a journal, and there were some letters. There's historical documents that have survived where he talks about it. He talks about this encounter because he was on a boat at the time.
Yep.
And he saw this creature in the loch near Eilean Donan.
Very spooky.
What do you think?
Well, you know, any person who sees a fish, you have to assume it's half as long as they actually say it is. That's a good rule of thumb.
Okay, so we're already at about 22.5 feet.
Which is still humongous, to be fair. Well, we talked in the Loch Ness episode about the possibility that it was I forgot what type of fish.
Sturgeon.
I was like, starling? That's a bird.
It's a little black bird.
Yeah. I think they're quite lumpy on their backs.
Starlings.
Sturgeons. So maybe he saw a massive sturgeon.
Maybe.
Because that's still a massive one. Terrifying.
I can't remember. I probably should have checked everything we talked about last time. But I'm assuming, because these are sea lochs, I believe, at
Yes.
Eilean Donan.
Oh, I don't know, actually.
But I'm wondering if you get sturgeons in salt water, or is it fresh water? Because that might rule out a sturgeon.
Ooh, I don't know.
That's my thought.
We'll have to leave it as mystery for you to ponder at home.
I hate that, though, because I always feel like I haven't done enough. I just can't remember. I can't remember. You might get both types.
I think I seem to remember that sturgeons sometimes get into Loch Ness.
From the sea.
From the sea.
Because they come up the canal.
Yes.
Is that the argument?
I think so.
I think they've been seen in the canal before.
Yeah. I mean, presumably it got stuck. If it's not a sea loch, I presumably it gets stuck there if it's 20 to 40 foot long.
Isn't that crazy?
So big.
That's so
big.
long.
Terrifying. Maybe it was a time-traveling submarine.
What on earth put that in your head? Where on earth did that come from? Like, I know we're tired. We've been recording for a long time.
It's just a thought.
Where did that come from?
Maybe it's a time-traveling submarine.
Crazy. This is because you had an extra coffee.
I've had 2 coffees and it's like 8 p.m.
That's what that is.
So I'm up all night, baby.
Well, that is everything I have for you on Eilean Donan Castle.
Well, my final thought is that I'm not as mad as I thought I might be that it's now like a MacRae castle, even though it hasn't been historically.
Well, MacRaes have been there for a long time. That's not disputed.
Yeah.
They were underneath the Mackenzies who had it.
And as various other castles have changed clan over the years, there was always a time where it was quite recent. And I'm sure people say, oh, well, they've only been there like 50 years. Like, why is it there? And then they stay there for several hundred more. So it's just nice, isn't it? Why not? There's nothing wrong at all with it being a MacRae castle. It's not hurting anybody. Apart from that arsehole who's like, I'm the chief.
Also MacRae, though. So.
Yeah. Well, yeah, at least he's a MacRae. Well, I thoroughly enjoyed that.
Did you like it?
I did.
It was one of the more confusing episodes to put together, I have to be honest.
Fair.
There are a lot of changing hands and a lot of clan feuds that get very difficult to keep track of. So I hope you enjoyed it.
I thoroughly enjoyed it.
There's several of you who get in touch with me whenever we do a castle episode to tell me you enjoy the castle episodes specifically.
We get a lot of castle-based requests.
So this one's for you.
This one's for you, castle lovers.
Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much.
We really appreciate you.
Hope you're enjoying season 5.
We're like properly in it now.
I know.
You've even had an extra because we had a 2-parter.
Oh, it feels good. It just makes it last longer. Splitting up the episodes. I like it.
We appreciate you. Thank you so much.
We're going to jump across to Patreon to share a blether with the Spookmaster Generals.
Yes, over there in the blether every Monday, we chat about the most recent episode. We share our thoughts. We share things that didn't make it into the full episode. We have a grand old time.
We do.
So we'll see you there.
Well, indeed. Bye.
Bye.